It is 4:30 p.m. and we will call this meeting to order. We can use that. All right. We'll start with roll call. Trustee McFerrin.
Here.
Trustee Mason.
Here.
Trustee Mayo.
Here.
And Trustee Nzewi, we believe, is on her way. And I'm also here. So that concludes roll call. So we'll move to public comment. The public may address the board concerning items that are scheduled for discussion during closed session only. And comments on closed session are also received by email to boardcomments@mdusd.org. And we have one speaker, Kip Penovich.
This gives me an opportunity to practice my paper passing skills.
Oh, yeah.
How to practice. Yeah. It says on.
All right, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry about that. Okay. You're going into closed session and one of the topics is negotiations. Since I have been a teacher, and by the way, my name is Kip Penovich. I teach at Northgate. Some of you might recognize me and some are new. This is my 29th year teaching. I have consistently heard we need to attract and retain. When you want to attract and retain, what's the first place they're going to look? The salary schedule and compensation. I've done a little bit of bargaining in my past, and by far, my experience has been the number one priority for teachers is compensation, because we do have to pay bills. One of the phrases that teachers will throw around is get over and down. And if you've seen the salary schedule, you know why that is. Why do teachers take these summer courses and all this stuff? It's to get over and down so they can maximize their earning potential. What are you looking at? You are looking at comparisons of the comparable far right column of all local school districts. Where it was not 75 units, I've highlighted that in parentheses. What do we see? Year one, kind of comparable. Unfortunately, years 5 through 20, in this column, we have the slowest salary growth of everybody. Years 1 through 15, this is where teachers build their base of their salary, and we're the slowest. Not a good attraction point there. You're asking them to build with less money. These are also the years where people are more likely to leave for greener pastures. So if you want to keep them, one of the best ways to keep them is pay them more. Where was I after that? I don't think I've seen anything go on our salary schedule in over 4 years. So if you wonder why teachers are, put it nicely, grumpy, that is a big reason. If you are not aware, Akalani's, which is the highest, just gave their teachers 4% more on schedule and gave them an off schedule 5%, which for most one time, which for most of them translates to $4,000 to $5,000. I hope that you'll keep this in mind, because if you really want to attract and retain the best, this is where it all starts. And I wanted to come do that before you went in, because I also got to go supervise some basketball games. So thank you very much and have a good meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Penovich. Okay. All right, so our closed session agenda begins with 3.1 negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations or provide direction to its representatives regarding represented employees pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. 3.2, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employee, Government Code Section 54957B1, one case. 3.3, readmission of student number 14-20 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. 3.4, readmission of student 13-20 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. 3.5, readmission of student 5-20 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. 3.6, readmission of student 10-20 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. 3.7, readmission of students 7-20 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. And 3.8, hearing on appeal of complaint determination number 21-4, AR 1312.1 and AR 1312.3. And with that, we will adjourn to closed session and we'll reconvene open session at 6 p.m. Thank you. All right. Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. So good to see everyone out here in the audience in person. Okay, so welcome to the Mount Diablo Unified School District Governing Board meeting, May 26, 2021, and it is 6 p.m. So we will begin. Excuse me, hold on, with our Pledge of Allegiance and roll call. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and we'll begin with roll call. Vice President Mason.
Here.
Trustee Mayo.
Here.
Trustee McFerrin.
Here.
And Trustee Nzewi. Here. I am also present, so we are all here and accounted for. All right. So to report out our actions taken in closed session, item 7.1, negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations or provide direction to its representatives regarding represented employees pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The board received information and provided direction. Item 7.2, discipline dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employee. There was no case presented tonight. Item 7.3, readmission of student 1420 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. In closed session, the Board of Education approved the recommendation 5-0 for the readmission of student 1420 who has completed the readmission process and the readmission assignments. Item 7.4, readmission of student 1320 to Mount Diablo Unified School District. In closed session, the Board of Education approved the recommendation for readmission 5-0 of student 13-20 who has completed the readmission process and the readmission assignments. Item 7.5, readmission of student 520 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. In closed session, the Board of Education approved 5-0 the recommendation for readmission of student 520 who has completed the readmission process and the readmission assignments. 7.6, readmission of student 1020 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. In closed session, the Board of Education approved the recommendation for the readmission of student 1020 who has completed the readmission process and the readmission assignments. And item 7.7, readmission of student 720 to the Mount Diablo Unified School District. In closed session, the Board of Education approved the recommendation for readmission of student 720 who has completed the readmission process and the readmission assignments. All right. And on item 7.8, the hearing will be rescheduled due to scheduling needs. All right. I need to have the approval of the agenda. Did I skip that?
Yeah, we skipped it, Madam President.
Excuse me.
That's okay, we can
Thank
do it now.
you. All right.
So Madam President, I'd like to ask that the board move item 17.1 to 9.0.
All right, 17.1, we'll move to 9.0, so right after 8. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
17.1. All right, thank you. So this is our review and potential approval of the agenda. Any other changes to the agenda at this time, trustees?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda, moving 17.1 to the position of 9.0.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee McFerrin. We'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
trustee Mayo.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. So we will make that change to the agenda. All right. So thank you. That takes us to public comment 8.1. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of the Mount Diablo Unified School District. Items that are not on this agenda at this time. Okay, and I believe we have one card. Thank you. Andrea Coulter. Andrea?
Happy Wednesday. I would like to make a request, but I would like to preface that with the fact that we are all still playing a role that is complete contradictory to science. MIT had a study about 6 feet versus 60 feet. We know that oxygen is the #1 nutrient to sustain life. Fun fact, our bodies get more energy from oxygen than they do from food. Distance learning has been a priority for my daughter in the face of all of this anxiety-inducing psychological and physical harm. And then I was told that those students who are to complete summer school have a hybrid as their only option. And in all fairness, equal access to education, especially those who have health issues and suffer from anxiety disorders, they need to have equal access without having the continued psychological harm of not being able to see other faces, not being able to breathe adequately, suffering from migraines. And we know that oxygen or lack of oxygen leads to hypoxia, hypoxemia, that causes brain damage in some who already suffer from a reduction of oxygen, even without a mask. So I don't know who the powers that be are that make decisions, but this is beyond unnecessary. This is dogma, trying to steal the identity of science, right? I'm sure all of you, all of the adults here are familiar with Dr. Stanley Milgram and his experiments on human behavior. And unfortunately, we know that humans will abdicate their well-being to a perceived authority, whether real or imagined. Who is the authority that is continuing all of this
What is it?
in spite of what we know to be true?
Excuse me. Thank you for your public comment.
So who is the authority?
So when there's a public comment, our board cannot engage in discussion on any particular issue because it's not
Okay.
on the agenda.
Not to worry, I will follow up in regards to equal access for summer school.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes us to item 17.1. All right, so review and potential approval of a one-time stipend for contracted employees for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And we have some comment cards here for 17.1. Should we take public comment first? All right. Okay, so first we have Teresa Rigo and then Gloria Cifuentes.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. Thank you for the hearing us. My name is Teresa Rigo, and I'm currently a lead worker 1 with the food service department. I've been with the district 27 years. I've been a soccer coach, varsity and JV soccer coach for the district. I love working in the Mount Diablo School District. I don't know if you guys are aware that, but in the food service department, we have very few 8-hour positions. We are considered 11 months employees, not 12-month employees. But this past year, food service has been working, even when everything was shut down in March. Food service knew our students and community needed healthy nutrition meals. So we figured out a way to doing curbside pickup. We worked through our spring break and actually risked our health and our family's health for our students. You have employees like Anna that I work with 21 years in the district. Estella, 15 years in the district. They only have 3 3/4 hours, but they are very loyal and dedicated employees. So to say you should only get a percentage of the 1,500 stipend depending on hours and months worked really sets a tone that they are less valued than, let's say, an office employee that stayed home half the year due to the pandemic. So please reconsider the proposal and give all employees across the board the 1,500 stipend and show us that you, as board members, appreciate and value all employees in the school district. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Gloria Cifuentes and then Jeanette Benitez.
Good evening, board, and good evening, Dr. Clark. My name is Gloria Cifuentes. I've been with the district for quite a few years. I am a shop steward. I'm a lead service worker, and I'm at Stratwood. I sometimes don't have another employee to help me. I don't have one right now to start out the year, so I might start by myself. But we'll wait till the time comes. For now, I would like to thank Dr. Clark, board members, for the stipend, if it goes through. However, there is the unfinished business of a raise. We have worked through the pandemic. We have not received a raise since 2017. And we keep beating our heads with the district in negotiations. The last raise was quite a few years ago. We haven't been able to come to an agreement with the raise. I ask and I implore you to reconsider this, much as if it was for your families, your loved ones. Please, please reconsider the raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeanette Benitez.
Good evening. Good evening, board members and Dr. Clark. First, I would like to thank the district for bringing forth Article 17.1 tonight in a newer and more equitable form. It's pleasing to see the right things being done, and I'd like to thank you. 2 weeks ago tonight, I stood at this podium and gave you a glimpse of the changed job duties of our Teamsters member during this pandemic. In the hopes that you, I'm sorry, I gotta take this off. In the hopes that you would understand how our lives changed during this past year. I stand here tonight for my fellow brothers and sisters who deserve equity pay for working diligently and going above and beyond their job duties. With this said, it is my hope that the board members passes this stipend tonight. I look forward to continuous work and future collaboration with the district at the bargaining table. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. That completes public comment on this item. And so at this point, I give the item to you, Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. Regards to item 17.1, I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Rubio and Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, staff, for readjusting. I know we moved this item up in the agenda, so I appreciate you. Whenever you're ready is fine.
So good morning, good evening, everybody. Board members, we're happy, staff is happy to have this before your consideration for review and potential approval. Of course, Dr. Gonzalez is here as our CBO in case you have any questions. We do have the language in front of you that in order to meet, and I'm going to help, Dr. Gonzalez doesn't have her glasses with her, so help. To meet federal and state guidelines for reopening schools for in-person instruction and to meet funding requirements of the state of California, employees shall support and participate in the district's reopening plans. So this is in front of you for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Employees who are in paid status on May 26, 2021 will receive, if approved, a one-time reopening payment of $1,500. This is a flat amount regardless of the employee's FTE allocation and will not include the following individuals: superintendent, board members, coaches on contracts, home and hospital hourly employees. One modification, just for clarity, where it says hourly employees, I would offer that we should probably clarify that and say any employees without a regular FTE or without a regular schedule. Eagle Peak staff, substitute active retirees, and summer school staff. Employees who are also on a full year unpaid leave status for 2020, 2021 school year would not be or are not eligible for the stipend.
Thank you very much. All right, trustees, do we have a motion?
I would move that we approve item 17.1, which is the approval of a one-time stipend for contracted employees in the 2021 school year as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Trustee Nzeri.
I just want to thank this board for wanting to give the money and thank the staff for figuring out a way to make it happen. And I want to recognize that this is hard and imperfect, but it's as perfect as it's ever going to be, I think. And so I just want to show my appreciation for that and thank the folks who came to our last meeting to point out the imperfection in our last proposal and to help us get it as right as it can possibly be.
Thank you, Trustee Nzeri. Any other discussion? Trustee McFerrin.
I'd just like to share my thoughts from our last meeting. I really appreciate the Teamsters coming and making public comment on this. I think I'm like a lot of people, I've been really focused on moving forward, as the health in our community improves. And so it's hard to look backward. And I did when people were speaking, and I thought about one of my friends who's also a Teamster and is a delivery driver and had to go back to work almost immediately during the pandemic. And this was when people couldn't buy hand sanitizer, couldn't buy masks. People were trying to fashion them out of t-shirts and whatnot. And at that time, our staff really stepped up. And so I really appreciate it, and so I'm just really excited, that we can do this for our staff, who I think certainly deserves it.
Very well said. Thank you both. Yes, I absolutely appreciate. I think this is an effort on the part of our whole board to really appreciate all of our employees who have stepped up through thick and thin through this global pandemic and kept our district running and kept our children fed and educated. So very much thanks to all of the employees. So with that, let's put this for a vote. Let's start with Trustee Mason.
Yes.
Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Nzeri.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I see there's a comment over here.
So I want to make sure that everyone is clear on what the next steps are. We want to make sure that our retirees, especially or particularly our certificated retirees who might be retiring as of the end of June, we know that it is most important to get them processed right away. So they're going to be the first ones that we process. Our goal is to make sure that we can get those checks cut by the end of June. We will have to run an additional payroll on that. That is our goal, but we will definitely make sure, at least with our retirees, that is taken care of. So future retirees who are retiring at the end of the month, to make sure that they receive that, and so it doesn't affect their retirement amounts. And a huge thank you in advance to the payroll staff, who I know is going to be working on the back end very diligently to make sure this happens correctly. So a big, huge thank you to that team.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to all staff who worked on this and made sure we were able to come through and complete the task. So very much appreciated. All right, that moves us to item 9.0, communications, district. Thank you so much. And it's so good to see you all in person. This is just wonderful. It's good to see us all coming out of this, hopefully, this whole pandemic. All right. And I know you have early mornings, so yes, feel free to leave. Thank you. All right. Okay. I know. All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay. We will. You're welcome. All right. We will move on with our agenda. All right. Item 9.0, communications. This is our district organizations. At regular board meetings, a single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation. Items are limited to those which are informational. And on this, I believe we have one card, Dan Reynolds.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Clark, cabinet, and members of the MDUSD community. My name is Dan Reynolds. I am the executive director of the Mount Diablo Education Association, MEDIA, the union representing most of the district's certificated employees. I'm also a product of MDUSD schools, Centerras, Glenbrook, and Mount Diablo High School, a parent of 2 MDUSD students, one a 4th grader and one a 7th grader, and I spent 16 years as a classroom teacher in the district at multiple sites. Tonight, I'd like to share a few comments about the third interim, the state budget and district budget processes, and successor contract negotiations between MEDIA and the board. Tonight, y'all will be presented with information related to your third interim budget report. I expect you'll hear in the report from staff, but in case it needs my adding volume to it, the third interim represents a snapshot of your finances as of April 30th, 2021. This was before the state May budget revise, which presented numerous ideas that will increase school district funding, so that as you approach your budgeting process immediately after this meeting, right, you will see updated projections about anticipated revenue and the state's ideas for how it will spend its money on education. That these are two different things, and that the dollar amounts that are going to be shared with you in the third interim report are that snapshot of April 30th, and that we are immediately going to need to be changing our understanding of revenue expectations as soon as you start the budgeting process, because many things changed with the May budget revise, which came out on May 12th and will be finalized by the state legislature when they adopt the budget before June 15th. Further, I'd like to point out that the multi-year projections attached to the third interim tonight give a limited picture of the district's finances. According to School Services of California, MDUSD will receive more than $109 million in one-time COVID-related funding. But the documents that you will see tonight only represent revenue for the district of less than 25 million of those 109 million, which means our district can expect another $84 million in one-time COVID funding beyond what you will see represented in the third interim report tonight. Further, we are concerned that there is that expectation of those $84 million coming in, but that staff is not yet presenting to you all that as part of their snapshot. They are creating a multi-year projection, which includes their estimates for increased costs in salaries, for their estimates on increased costs in health benefits, for their estimates on increased costs to retirement, for their estimates on other increased costs that have not yet materialized yet. And so their point is, well, we know those things are coming, so we're going to project them. But staff is not including those $84 million of COVID funds, which they know are coming. And it should be all of the expectations moving forward, or it should be clearly stated that there is a limited presentation of revenue and expenditures, because what you're going to be presented with has an increased expenditure over the multi-year projection, but does not include those $84 million of increased revenue. And so you're not seeing the full picture of where your finances are at in that third interim that you're seeing this evening. I want to talk a little bit now about the May budget revise. The updated projections from the state and the updated projections from School Services of California that the district uses to craft multi-year projections and that you will use to craft your budget include a cost of living adjustment for the 21-22 school year of 5.04%. That's an increase in ongoing dollars. In 22-23, it includes an increase of 2.48%. And in 23-24, 3.11%. These increases will generate over a 3-year term more than $65 million total for our district, including $30 million of ongoing funds by the end of that 3-year term. The district's revenue ongoing will increase by more than $30 million according to those projections. The state May budget revise also includes more than $10 million in additional one-time funds being sent to the district by the state due to COVID relief, as well as appropriations limits at the state, triggering the state dispersing those funds to school districts. The budget situation is improving. Last year, when the board made cuts, they did so because they were attempting to ensure the long-term fiscal health of the district, to eliminate year-over-year deficits, and to work to find a way to give their employees a salary increase, including the 5.5% that had been agreed with Medea at the bargaining table in December of 2019. The district, the board, then voted against finalizing that agreement with Medea in May of 2020 for fear that we were entering a recession. If it was a recession, it is over. We have seen that the state has tens of billions of dollars of excess revenue this year, and that the governor has proposed a 21-22 state budget that includes new programs for schools, including expanding to universal TK, as well as expanding mental health services, community school grants, and other things. The state is saying we have the money to do better by education. So when I hear that, and then I hear people speak to the board, including staff speak to the board, to talk about dire situations or financial cliffs, I see cognitive dissonance. The point I would like to make to the board is there is money to get us through the pandemic. There is not an ongoing recession in our state. There is money to pay for salary increases for all of your employees, which brings me to the next point, to talk a little bit about full contract negotiations. Today, Medea and the district's bargaining teams met for our first bargaining session to begin successor negotiations for the contract that will succeed the current one that expires on June 30th of this year. Every educator in MDUSD deserves a salary increase. Medea members also deserve the 5.5% increase y'all agreed to at the bargaining table in December of 2019. We look forward to reaching agreement to settle this contract soon and not dragging it out over 18 months like the last bargain went. Our goal is to get this settled quickly in the fall. To conclude, I'd like to share my appreciations for every educator in our district for the tremendous efforts that they have exerted over the last 15 months. So many of the people who work in education, and when I say that, and when I say educators, I mean our Medea members, but I also mean our CSEA members, our Teamsters, our CST members, our school psychologist members, and our DMA members. All of the employees who work together to educate the children of this community in this district have worked tremendously well to respond to this global pandemic. They have learned new ways of doing their job. Some of them have had their jobs restructured, and we have met that challenge. The board has done everything that it can to pay attention to those challenges and to meet them as well. And as we look forward to improving community health, to more and more of our students receiving their vaccines and becoming fully vaccinated, as we look forward to our youngest students potentially being able to be vaccinated in the fall as well, as we look forward to moving out of the pandemic, and as we look forward to an improved budget picture for the state of California and therefore for school districts, we look forward to the board doing all that it can to ensure that you are taking care of our students by taking care of our employees, to provide the best learning environment possible for our students, which means providing them with the best educators possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I believe there are no more speakers on this item. Okay. All right, thank you very much. That moves us to item 10.0, recognitions and resolutions. So item 10.1, review and potential approval of the renaming of the Valley View Gymnasium in honor of Mr. Corey Salmon. And we do have a comment card here, Lisa Sullivan.
Good evening, board members. Thank you so much for considering this evening. I just wanted to add one thing. I really realized last spring the impact Mr. Salmon has on the Valley View community and the Pleasant Hill community. When we were serving meals daily out of Valley View to the community, Mr. Salmon came every single day to hand out meals to the community. And while doing that, it was like half the people who came knew him, either through his teaching, his coaching, or just being part of the community. And I really realized that at that point, how much he means to our community and how much I really would like this recognition for him to be done so that we can name the gym, the Corey Salmon Gymnasium. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, is there another speaker? Yeah. Okay. Come on up and speak and then just fill out a card after.
A little shorter. I'm here to speak about Corey Salmon also. I was on the committee for this. I've known Corey for 22 years and he was a PE teacher for all 4 of my children. Also, he was a coach for my oldest and my 3rd born. And I just want to say he's a family friend. But what's more for me, what I saw was when there were kids that were struggling or having problems with their behaviors at school or were getting in trouble, he took those kids specifically under his wing and said, hey, I got you, or ask him to be his TA, or say, hey, why don't you join the wrestling team and work with them? And then when I would see them years later in high school, and what a difference, just knowing what he did for them in middle school, going into high school, the trajectory changed. And a lot of them stayed with wrestling, some didn't, but the ones that I knew personally, he made a huge difference in their life. Also with regards to special ed, he didn't treat them any differently in his PE classes. If anything, he went out of his way to make sure they were welcome and they were treated equally. And he would even go as far if there was a child that would never do something in his class all year long, and she did it or he did it, he would video it and send it to the mom because he knew how special that was going to be for that mom, seeing that child do something that they've never done before. So I just wanted you to give a little personal history on Corey Salmon and what a special person he is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, with that, I will give this item over to Dr. Clark. Is there a presentation?
Yeah, Madam President, we don't have a presentation, but what I will say is that that this process followed board policy, and they convened a committee, and the committee shared their recommendation within the packet. So we have the principal of the school here if you have any questions, but other than that, I'm going to put this back in the hands of the board.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Clark. All right, trustees, do we have a motion on this item?
I'll move to approve the renaming of the Valley View Middle School Gymnasium in honor of Mr. Corey Solomon.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Motion by trustee McFerrin, second by trustee Nzewi. All right, any discussion?
I believe that there is a clarification within the board policy of what is staff's recommendation regarding A or B.
Well, before staff speaks, I'll just say, I'm going to support this. I'm not against it, but my understanding of the policy was the first step is that the board's informed that this is something the community wants to do. And then thank you, Dorothy, for your comments, because then you come and you explain to the board why you think this is a good idea. And I would just say that because of things that have happened recently, I'm not big on naming anything after people, because it seems like down the road, it ends up maybe not being such a good idea. Again, I'll vote for it. That's not the issue. Just that we need to be mindful. And with that in mind, I would prefer the 10-year option rather than the lifetime option, but that's just my thoughts.
Staff, did you want to respond to
Yeah.
the item A or B?
Yes, item B.
Okay, so to clarify between item A and B, it was the 10-year option versus the lifetime of the person. Is that correct? So staff is recommending item B, which is the lifetime of the person. Okay. All right. So would you like to clarify your motion as to item A or B?
I'll move to approve it as presented.
All right, any further discussion? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
Trustee Mason.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. And thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Is Mr. Salmon here today? No. Okay. We weren't sure if there was another step. Would you like to speak?
He's very humble, and he cried when I told him that we had the committee, and he's very honored, but he never feels like he should get honored for anything. He just feels like this is what you should do as an educator. You should take care of your students. You should take care of the community. And he doesn't see himself as special. He just sees himself as an educator and that he loves his students and he loves the community. So that's why he's not here tonight. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Principal Sullivan. All right. Okay. So that moves us on to item 10.2, recognition of distinguished schools, Foothill Middle School. I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Clark.
Yes, so if I know that we started closed session at 4:30 today, but at 4 o'clock, there was a special presentation from the California Department of Education. And within that presentation, Foothill Middle School was honored and recognized as being a distinguished school. And so we wanted to bring this item in front of the board, and we wanted to formally recognize Foothill Middle School as a distinguished school. And we have the principal here today, and we would like to put her on the spot and have her come to the podium and share some wonderful things about her school in the process.
my community, but work totally with all of the other middle schools and the feeder high schools and the elementary schools as well. It really takes, in order to achieve this, it's a concerted effort on everyone's part. So no. Yep. Did you hear it? I'm not repeating everything because it was totally off the cuff. Okay. So the idea is, I just want to say is that it is really based on, it's the work that the students do, it's the work the families do, it's the work that my full staff does, but it really is also based on all of the foundations that happen as a district. And I think that's such an important part of being in a unified district. I know that I really rely on my middle school principals in the team effort of that part and what we do to bring it within our community. So I just want to thank all of you for the support. I think that it's important to recognize that this is a Mount Diablo accomplishment. And I will point out as well is that in the slideshow today, when they did the presentation, they did not recognize that we were in a Mount Diablo Unified School District. So I did send off a little message on the side afterwards. But I think that's important because I think it does establish something within what we do as a purpose in our community. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Principal Vienna, and congratulations to everyone who was a part of that win. It's so wonderful to be recognized by the state as a distinguished school. Thank you. All right. That takes us to 10.3, review and potential approval of Board Resolution 2021-70 to authorize variable term CBEST waivers for 30-day substitutes. Dr. Clark?
Dr. Rubio is going to take this item.
Great, thank you again. The board members, the California Commission on Teaching Credentialing, or CTC, authorizes the issuance of a variable term waiver for CBEST for 30-day substitute teaching permits to those individuals who have a bachelor's degree but have not yet taken or passed the CBEST. So this is before you tonight, asking for your approval, so we have that flexibility as we go into the school year.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
I'd make a motion that we approve the Board Resolution 20/23-70 to authorize variable term CBEST. Take my glasses off so I can read waivers for 30-day substitutes.
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion by Vice President Mason, second by Trustee Mayo. Any discussion? All right, we'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, that takes us to item 10.4, review and a potential approval of Board Resolution 2021-71 for personnel with provisional internship permits. Dr. Clark?
And that's also going to be Dr. Rubio again.
Thank you. The Commission on Teaching Credentialing, again, or CTC, does allow provisional internship permits, which provides applicants additional time to meet their subject matter competence requirements. This evening, we have 2 employees on the resolution in front of you asking for your support and approval so that they may have that additional time.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
I'd move that we approve the Board Resolution 20/21-71 for personnel with provisional internship permits.
Second.
All right, motion by Trustee Mason, second by Trustee Mayo. Any discussion? All right, we'll take it to a vote. Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
I also vote yes. I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Yeah, I try to switch it up a little bit here. Keep it lively. All right, thank you so much. All right, so that moves us into our resolutions. Item 10.5, review and potential approval of resolution 2021-72, recognizing June as LGBTQ Pride Month. Dr. Clark.
Thank you. Get these on here. So we are bringing forward resolution 20/21-72, recognizing June as LGBTQ and Pride Month. So whereas in a time to celebrate our dynamic LGBTQ plus community, raise awareness of quality service, and foster a dialogue to promote healthy, safe, and prosperous school climates and communities for all. And now therefore be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District recognizes the month of June 2021 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month to inspire equity, create alliances, celebrate diversity, and establish a safe environment in our schools and community. And be it further resolved that this resolution be distributed to every school in the district. I now turn it over in the hands of the board.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion on this resolution?
I'll move to approve Resolution 2021-72, recognizing June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee McFerrin, second by trustee Mayo. Any discussion?
And I have a comment
Yes.
from trustee Alas. So she presented her statement for me to read. So item 10.5. I am ecstatic to express my support for resolution 20/21-72, recognizing June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Schools deserve to be a safe space for all students, a sanctuary where they can be unapologetically themselves. Recognizing June as Pride Month helps in making a large demographic of students feel seen, but it doesn't always stop the slurs and ostracization that may occur. We have to actively pledge to act against homophobia and transphobia, to teach inclusivity and love, and to practice it in the classroom. I know that seeing the flag for many students is a relief. They know that MDUSD is their home. I am excited to support this resolution, and I wish I could vote yes from afar.
Thank you very much, trustee Alas from afar. Any other discussion on this item? Trustee Nzewi.
When it comes to issues related to LGBTQ plus community, I feel so lucky that my daughter and all of our students are growing up in these times. As a child of the 80s, I remember starkly the hate and vitriol our nation's leaders held towards non-cisgendered, non-heterosexual people as the AIDS epidemic emerged. I remember the shock of the adults on TV announcing Rock Hudson had died and he in fact was gay. I remember my grandmother telling me in hushed tones that her best friend Stanley was gay. Yet today I started my day, as has become customary, introducing myself and my pronouns on a Zoom call. My daughter is part of a group that welcomes students with hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. That's unimaginable for people of our age that would have happened when we were children. But as I sit here in my cisgendered heterosexual privilege, I can't ignore the fact that LGBTQ youth are almost 5 times as likely to have attempted suicide compared to heterosexual youth, or are more likely to have used alcohol, tobacco, or other drugs because of the stress our society puts on them just for existing. Although I'd heard of Marsha P. Johnson over my life, it wasn't until last June that I learned so much about her life and role in the Stonewall Uprising and subsequent movement for LGBTQ rights. But the best part was learning what the P stood for in her name. And believe me, I've held on to this knowledge tightly this year. Pay it no mind. I look forward to voting for this resolution, and happy Pride Month.
Thank you, trustee Nzewi. All right, any further discussion? Okay. Trustee McFerrin.
In my short time in the board, I've heard from several groups and people who are concerned about our outdated curricula. And since I think this is relevant here, I'd like to mention that the Fair, Accurate, Inclusive, and Respectful Education Act, written by Senator Mark Leno, went into effect January 1st, 2012. The FAIR Act amends education code to ensure that the contributions and roles of underrepresented racial, ethnic, and cultural populations are included in grades 1 through 12 United States and California history lessons, classes, and curricular materials. My expectation is that when we're looking at adopting new curricula and instructional materials, that we keep the FAIR Act in mind. In every district where I've worked, representation, especially positive representation of people in the LGBTQ plus community, is severely limited. We have an opportunity and an obligation to change this by expanding the focus of our instructional programs. I also want to recognize that our schools have GSA clubs, sometimes called the Gender Sexuality Alliance, sometimes called the Gay Straight Alliance. Often these students are advocates for creating safe and brave spaces on their campuses. And so I want to thank these students and their hardworking staff advisors for the efforts that they make to support inclusion on our campuses.
Thank you very much, trustee McFerrin. I also would like to just thank everyone who helped make this resolution possible and who works every day to make sure that our classrooms and spaces are all inclusive spaces to be. I proposed this resolution last year for the first time in this district. We raised the rainbow flag, and it was so thrilling to be able to do that with students, staff, and community partners. I was hoping that it would become an annual tradition of the school district. And so this is our second one. So thank you again to Rainbow Community Center and Clay Cord PFLAG, who also provide resources, training, and have held school conferences on our campuses as well to help students and staff to really learn how to be inclusive when it comes to gender and sexuality. So and in the resolution itself, it talks about our AR 5145.3 that does require that our student handbook, our student age appropriate information is provided at the beginning of every school year, as well as making sure that staff have the information and staff development to be able to do this effectively. So really appreciate everyone on their efforts here, and thank you to all the students as well who've been involved. Okay, so with that, I will put it to a vote. All right. So we'll start with Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
Trustee Mason.
Yes.
Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
I also vote yes, and it appears as though our student board member also would have liked to vote yes. So that's a 5-0 vote with concurrence from our student board member in absentia. All right, thank you very much, everyone, and we look forward to the flag raising ceremony. Okay, item 10.6, review and a potential approval of resolution 2021-73, recognizing May as Jewish American Heritage Month.
Yes, Madam President, tonight we bring before you Resolution 20/21-73, recognizing May as Jewish American Heritage Month. Whereas National Jewish American Heritage Month celebrates and recognizes Jewish contributions to American culture, history, military, science, government, education, and all areas of American life. And now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the Mount Diablo Unified School District hereby recognizes May as Jewish American Heritage Month and supports opportunities for all students, staff, faculty, and members of the public to honor and learn more about Jewish American history and culture. I now put this item in the hands of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. And I appreciate also that in the summary, it is clarified that the proposed resolution is about celebrating our Jewish American students, staff, and families, and it is not a statement regarding any geopolitical events that are currently underway, and serves to remind everyone that hatred in all its forms is unacceptable. So appreciate that. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I would move the board adopt the resolution 20/21-73, recognizing May 2021 as Jewish American Heritage Month.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Trustee Mayo, second by Trustee Nzewi. Do we have any, Dr. Clark, did you have something?
I have a comment.
A comment. Go ahead.
From Trustee Alas. So Trustee Alas says, I am also excited to support resolution 20/21-73, recognizing May as Jewish American Heritage Month. I especially appreciated how the resolution mentions Jewish Americans' contribution to American culture and society and recognizes the increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes. May we actively combat anti-Semitism and hatred by teaching cultural competency within our MDUSD schools and our community. I am thrilled to support this resolution.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Any further discussion? Trustee Nzewi?
Just think of me as Sophia from Golden Girls. Okay, so because there's always a story in here. So I grew up in a small town in Central California, and I didn't know that any of my high school classmates were Jewish until we were all grown. And I've pondered that, especially when many years ago, a Jewish coworker described how she was treated at a job that she worked at in Texas when her coworkers found out she was Jewish. And my small town and what I imagine a small town in Texas may not be too far apart culturally. Anyway, again, a child of the 80s, small town. I read the Diary of Anne Frank, and I don't remember if it was required reading, but I'm pretty certain I read it on my own. I learned about the Holocaust, and I would say, of course, but as we see examples of textbooks from other states or proclamations from some leaders that say it didn't happen, I don't take that for granted. But I want to take this moment to address some grumblings I've heard, like why is this board spending so much time on resolutions? With every resolution addressing a specific heritage, I've admitted my own ignorance about that heritage. I do that to demonstrate to others that they aren't alone, and to illustrate that our school district is trying to do better, be better than anything any adult in the room experienced. These resolutions, for a moment, bring attention to the beauty of the diverse cultures in our district and our nation, that if all you ever hear about is in this resolution, well, at least there's that. And as we normalize these resolutions, we'll begin to normalize the meaningful celebration of these months in our schools, and eventually move to a place where in our district, none of these special recognitions, Black history, women's history, Arab heritage, Asian American Pacific Islander heritage, Jewish heritage, Pride Month, and we have 6 more months to go in this year, but that we get to a place where no one is an other, but instead as much a part of American and world history, social studies, science, math, etc., as the history of Europeans all throughout the world. These resolutions are not the panacea, but they're one simple step we can take each meeting to raise awareness on issues and slowly turn the tide, valuing all in our community and making sure the education we provide reflects that. Until then, I'm so happy to support this resolution in honor of Jewish American Heritage Month.
Thank you so much, Trustee Anzari. Any other further discussion? All right. I'd just like to add to that, that in the resolutions, we do also try to make sure that there are references to either actual policy or resources or community partners. And so in this case, it does refer us to various resources that can be used in our classrooms and in our community. There are 3. There's the jewishheritagemonth.gov website. There's the National Museum of Jewish History and the National Park Service National Register of Historic Places. So those are just a few of the resources that we can tap into for free, similarly to the presentation that we had last month from ing.org that has all kinds of free and incredible resources for inclusion of all races and faiths. So there are actions tied to these resolutions. They're not just words. So just wanted to point that out. And thank you to all of the community members who helped with this resolution as well. We look forward to growing our partnerships with all of the community groups and parents in our district who have an interest in improving our district in this way as well. So, all right, so with that, we'll take this to a vote. Let's start at this end with Trustee Anzari.
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Mason.
Yes.
Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0 with concurrence from afar from our trustee Alas. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, so that moves us on to item 10.7, review and potential approval of resolution 2021-74 to establish temporary interfund transfers. Dr. Clark?
And I'm going to have Dr. Gonzalez take this item.
So the purpose of this resolution is to ensure that during the upcoming school year, if there is a need for us to cover any expenses due to a shortage of cash flow, that we are able to move the funds over temporarily and then move them back. This is a standing practice that school districts go through every year at approximately this time. And we are asking your approval for this. And we also have Mika's also in the back if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Do we have a motion on this issue?
I would make a motion to approve resolution 20/21-74 to establish temporary interfund transfers as needed.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Vice President Mason, second by Trustee Mayo. Is there any discussion? Trustee Anzari?
To make sure I understand, and then I think regular people understand, is it like at home, you have a budget of $100 and you say so much goes to this and so much goes to that and so much goes to that. But if you're stringent and you run out of money, but you have money sitting over here,
Correct.
right? So it's not that we're spending more money than we have, it's that we've defined how we're spending money. And for some reason, we spent more over here, but we have plenty over here. And so we just move it to a different funding.
Yes, in a nutshell, that's one way.
Whatever.
One way to describe it. Another way to take a look at it is that we get money, our expenses every month are not exactly the same. So we know that our biggest payroll is in June because that's when we have stipends. But typically what happens over the course of a fiscal year is right around November, December, we often see that we may not necessarily have as much cash in a specific account. So we can go to another account, let's say like a routine restricted maintenance or something similar to that. And we can, for that month, move the funds over, because what happens in the county treasury is it's just a big, huge bank account and all the money is green. Even though in our budgets, they have a bunch of different colors based on the sources. And so we want to use whatever is green that we have available so that we don't have to go out and get another tran. So we borrow from one and then we move it right back again. So that's what this resolution is. It's giving us permission to do that.
To borrow from ourselves with money that we have.
Thank you.
And putting it back where it belongs once we have the funding or whatever that is meant for that source.
Very good.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. I think it really helps the whole community to understand as well. Right, so when it's a cash flow issue, that's when it's used. All right. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, we'll move that to a vote. Let's start with trustee Mayo,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzeri.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so that moves us along to item 11.0, public employee appointment. Review and potential approval of personnel appointment, program specialist, categorical programs, site-based at Olympic Alliance. Dr.
Yes,
Clark.
I'm going to have Dr. Rubio take this item.
Great. Thank you. Good evening again. We're happy to have before you for your review and potential approval, the personnel appointment for a program specialist, categorical program site-based at Olympic and Alliance. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Christy Kaufenberg. If Ms. Kaufenberg is here. Is here? All right, great. Ms. Kaufenberg, I'll tell you a little bit about her. Grew up in nearby Martinez. She attended college in Southern California. She started a career teaching elementary school in her hometown of Martinez for 5 years. She at some point did move overseas to gain some additional experience, and in the city of Dubai, taught elementary school for 4 years. While in Dubai, she also earned her master's degree in educational leadership and administrative services. After returning to the Bay Area, she has been a dean of students, an assistant principal, district English learning coordinator, and a dean currently, I believe, learning support. Christy also enjoys knitting, taking walks, doing puzzles, going on day trips, and looking at homes on Zillow that she cannot afford. And I don't know, go ahead, please.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Christy Kaufenberg, program specialist, categorical programs, site-based at Olympic and Alliance.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Mayo. Any discussion? All right, we'll take it to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Mayo,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzeri.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. And congratulations, Ms. Kaufenberg. If you'd like to come up and
Good.
say any words, thank anybody, you're welcome.
You got to turn on the mic.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Hi, thank you. I'm really looking forward to joining Mount Diablo and Lindsay at Olympic High School. I'm really happy to be back over on this side of the bridge and going back to continuation and supporting Alliance. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. All right, and welcome. Okay. All right, that takes us to reports and information. Item 12.1, review the increase and decrease of certificated personnel FTE for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you again. Item 12.1 is our usual plus and minus list showing the transactions occurring in the fiscal office. It is here for your information regarding certificated personnel, if you have any questions.
Trustees, any questions? All right, that moves us to item 12.2, increase and decrease of classified personnel FTE for the 2020-21 school year.
Thank you. Similarly, this is the increase decrease for the classified, showing again transactions for our classified employees. If you have any questions for your information.
Trustees, do you have any questions? All right, thank you very much for the informational items. Okay, that takes us to 13.0, superintendent's report. Dr. Clark.
Have the power. Oh, great. Thank you. Great, thank you. So tonight I have just some updates that I want to share with the board, and I like looking you all in the eyes and stuff. And so that's why I'm coming up here to the podium here and there. So I just want to take us back to January 27th, 21. And in January, we gave a reopening update, and we agreed that we would follow county metrics and that we would also use federal, state, and county guidance to use as our guide. We agreed to be very transparent with our safety measures, and we also agreed that we would support and provide as much as possible testing and vaccinations. And we looked for our families to commit to us whether they wanted to participate in the hybrid schedule or distance learning. And we also said at that meeting that we would be doing distance learning until at least March. And I'm just so thrilled to report that we met all 6 of those. And you know, with the metrics, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, but I really do want to highlight number 4, which is testing and vaccination. So I'm just so thrilled of the team that we were able to pull it together and we're still providing testing at our sites for all of those students, staff, community members who want it, and we are continuing to do that. And this week marks the 2nd week that we provided vaccinations to students or to community members 12 and up. And so this week is at Ignacio Valley High School, and it's going very smoothly. And last week, Concord High did a fabulous job at hosting them. And then probably the other highlight here is that, and our principals can attest to this, but we have kids back on our campus, and it has been extremely smooth. It has been without major issues. And I believe that our students have benefited so much from having the opportunity to come back for in-person instruction. But also, we did not lighten up on the offerings of our students who remained in distance learning. So we remain committed to that throughout this process. So I do just want to recognize that we did keep our word on every last one of these commitments that we made to the public. Hopefully this is one of the last times I show this chart, but this is our county metrics from today. And you can see at the state level, it's 2.8 new COVID cases per 100,000. And just to bring you back on January 19th, that 2.8 was 105.4. So that was at the state level. So just a few months ago, that's what it looked like in terms of the state. And then as we go to the county, that number is 3.9 in Contra Costa County right now. And back on November 19th, it was 60.4. So again, I think this really should provide a lot of hope for us that we are definitely moving in the right direction. Clearly, there's still work to be done, but our county is moving in the right direction, and we're just completely thrilled with that. I did want to highlight, with this being sort of our last meeting before the conclusion of the academic year, I wanted to just highlight a few things. Is that we as a district in July, we moved completely online, and that is no easy task. You know, a lot of credit goes to the team, but I definitely want to highlight the work of Jen Sachs and her team on the academic side and working with the teachers and principals and staff and whatnot. And so not only did we provide a online curriculum and experience to our 29,000 students, we also then halfway through the school year moved over and offered in person as well. So just, you know, so many accolades needs to go to the team for pulling that off. And then as a district, we should also be very proud that we met the needs of our community. We met our needs, the needs with meals, which, you know, many of our Teamsters were here earlier who were on the front lines of providing families with meals. And I'm not referring to just a box lunch. They received boxes of food. We partnered with local organizations, and we were able to provide days of food to our families who needed it. And so that is something that we should be absolutely ecstatic about. We also, the work coming out of Lisa Gonzalez's department provided, you know, close to, you know, 18,000 or so Chromebooks that are out in our community right now that students are utilizing, and also many mobile hotspots as well to help with the digital divide and make sure that our students have access to the online curriculum. And I do just want to point out, although, you know, depending on who you ask about distance learning or whatnot, whether they loved it or hated it, we did provide grade level curriculum was delivered to each and every one of our students. And that is something that we did not waver on our expectations and on our standards and our commitment to making sure that students still received the proper instruction with the grade level curriculum. And another thing is, again, depending on who you ask, students didn't learn this year. There was learning that took place. And, you know, again, we found some students actually excelled in distance learning. Others, there definitely were some students who struggled and who are going to need some extra support, but there was learning that took place this year, and we are very, very proud of that. And we know that learning took place because we graded our students. So, you know, we have grades and we have assessments, whether those are chapter tests, whether those are quizzes, or whether that's the state assessment that we are wrapping up and administering as well. And this week and next, approximately 2,000 students will be graduating our system. So just in a very challenging year, and things that none of us had ever thought of or were prepared for, I just want to acknowledge that this district did the best it could, and I think that we met our challenge, and we should all reflect and be very proud of that. Our product is our students. And so whether they come to us at TK or 4th grade or 6th grade or 9th grade, you know, we are here to produce students who are college and career ready. And this week, we will be celebrating those students, we'll be celebrating those families, we'll be celebrating the staff that worked extremely hard to make sure that these students got to you know, to these ceremonies. Last night, we were fortunate enough to go to the DVC campus and see the College Now program students who matriculated through that program. And I just have to say that it was just such a warm event, and it was so diverse in our representations from our different high schools, and seeing the students there with their families and how they interacted with staff was a very special moment. And so we are looking forward to the many graduations that we have in front of us. And I cannot thank staff enough for how they supported students through this process, and also worked with families and the communities in helping our students matriculate through our system. And so again, this board should be very proud at what you're going to see starting last night, but going until June 5th, where we will be on the graduation circuit. I also just want to just give a brief update. We had some key reports and actions taking place. So we did work collaboratively with the California, with CCEE, the California Collaborative Educational Excellence, and they did complete their SIR report. I want to thank staff and thank the community members who participated in that process. And CCE representatives did come and present that, that report and that information to this board at our last meeting. But staff has that document, and staff is busily planning and preparing to implement the recommendations and the guidance that we're receiving over the next couple academic years. FCMAC is also wrapping up their assessment on maintenance and operations. They completed their study on the business department, and they will be submitting that report very shortly. And like I said, they are finishing up with maintenance and operations. So that's being done. And then later on this evening, we'll have our third interim budget, and that will be checked off the list. And then we still have our LCAP, which again, Ms. Sachs has been working nonstop with her team and engaging with the community and stakeholders on that. And we're excited to bring that document to the board and to the community. And also in the next two meetings, we will be submitting our annual budget, and Dr. Aguili and her team will be really digging into the Comprehensive Coordinated Early Intervening Services, better known as the SACE plan, in the weeks and months to come. So these were just some of those key reports that are really going to guide the actions of our district over the next couple of years. We're excited to go through this process. It can be, it can be sometimes difficult when you have to take a hard look in a high definition mirror, and you see things when you do that, and some things look nicer than others, but I myself, and when I got the high definition camera on Zoom, I noticed the growing wrinkles around my eyes. And so as we looked at our organization, maybe we saw some wrinkles. And so as as I'm applying oil of Olay to my eyes, there's the oil of Olay equivalent to the academic and other interventions that we will be doing throughout the district over the next couple of years. Summer school is quickly approaching. I've shared this slide at our last several meetings, so everyone should be aware that we're offering summer school. I'm excited that it's not just remediation summer school. It is something where we're trying to think outside the box. We're trying to bring some other experiences to students so that they can get. Some of our students need to be reacquainted to schools and being on sites. We also do have students who need to make up some credits and also get some remediation, but we are very excited about summer school, and we're excited with the one-time funds that have allowed us to open this up to a much wider population of students who maybe would not have had the opportunity to come onto our campuses and continue to participate in learning activities. So we're very excited about summer school coming up. I also, oftentimes I'm asked about the fall, and so I just wanted to provide some very concrete fall dates. August 5th and 6th is going to be our new teacher orientation, and we are already starting to plan those activities out and welcome those new members to our team. And then starting August 9th through 11th will be all teacher in service days. And then that day that we are all waiting for, we just have to get through summer before this comes, so we don't want to skip that. I think we all need a summer break here coming up. But our first day of school will be August 12th, and once August 12th hits, we all will be looking forward to September 6th, which will be our first vacation, because it's going to be a long haul getting ready for that. And so September 6th is Labor Day, and for our secondary folks, October 8th is going to be the end of the first quarter, and so on and so on. So again, this is our calendar for next year. It's set in stone, and we are ready to meet those dates. And we're already, we always have to be 3 months ahead of today. And so we're already planning planning for these activities and planning for what's coming up next. I want to say as we go forward, those critical conversations that we're going to be having over the next couple of years, but more than likely, we're going to start that planning and working on this, over the summer and going into fall. High academic achievement. And you notice I did not say provide high academic achievement opportunities for everyone. It's no. All of our students need to achieve at high academic levels. Now, how that is measured is different. It's not necessarily all on a standardized test. It's not necessarily all on hands-on activities, and it's not necessarily all on group projects or portfolio work. It is a combination of all of those, but we do expect and we expect all of our students to achieve high academic levels. And so we are looking forward to that, and we want to make sure that that is consistent throughout our district. And we also want to make sure that every space that we have within this district is equitable and an inclusive learning environment. And so that is the work that we have in front of us. Those are going to be critical conversations, not courageous conversations, but critical conversations. They have to happen, they must happen, and they will happen. And lastly, I just want to take a minute and I want to recognize the work of this board. This has not been an easy year. It has not been an easy term, but throughout this time, you guys have displayed leadership. You've had to make some extremely tough decisions. You have not wavered for one moment on your focus on student and staff safety, and you have consistently displayed high expectations for all staff and of yourselves, and especially of me. And I appreciate that, and I take on that challenge happily. And lastly, I just want to say you guys are a strong governance body. And so with that, I conclude my report. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. It's really great to look back over the whole year and see really the accomplishments from an amazing global pandemic and what everyone as a team was really able to achieve. So thank you for sharing that. Trustees, do you have any questions or comments on this report?
I would just like to thank Dr. Clark for his leadership. It had to be a lot of fun coming into a new district in the middle of all this chaos. And you have held us together as a team and moved us forward. And I'm looking forward to whatever the new normal is starting in the fall.
Thank you. Trustee Nzeri?
I'd echo, thank you for your leadership and your whole team's leadership and the whole district's ability to get us to this day, 14 months out of, who brought it March 13th earlier, out of March 13th. And I wanted to appreciate this slide before, the critical conversations that you said have to happen around high academic achievement and inclusive learning spaces. And I appreciated you, like, that the measurement of high academic achievement isn't just this or that or that or this, and that students learn in so many different ways and can demonstrate what they've learned in so many different ways, if only we don't box them into the only way that we want to measure that. So I look forward to those very critical conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark.
And I just want to say the next item is an open discussion. If the board has any questions about fall, I have staff that is here that can respond, or I can respond. But if there's anything that you guys are unsure about the fall, I know that we are all eagerly awaiting June 15th to see what new guidance will come from Sacramento. And just so we're clear, we still have agreements with labor partners until June 30th. So regardless of what comes out of Sacramento, we're still going to honor those agreements that we have. And then also Cal OSHA, which also supersedes a lot of our decisions and policies or whatnot. We're also waiting to hear from them about how our workspaces need to be organized and what sort of mitigation strategies we have to have in place during that time. So So those are some things that we're all eagerly awaiting for. But unfortunately, school will be out by that time, but summer school will be in, and so we'll kind of address that when that comes.
Thank you very much. Trustees, questions on fall? Trustee Nzewi.
Thank you. I heard, this is more of a comment. I don't think there's a question in there, but if you
Okay.
find one, then you can
All right.
answer. It's just that, last week I listened to Assembly Budget Committee on Education, and Assembly Member Min, he's from Orange County. He just brought up what I thought was a really good point as we return in the fall, our youngest children likely won't be vaccinated. And so there are many parents who will still be hesitant to send their children back to school. And a lot of rhetoric is children have to go back to school. And it's discounting the very valid concerns that parents have. And so his point was that we shouldn't really other even those parents. And it was around the discussion around what kind of distance learning options could be had. But his point was that as we have those discussions, whatever it looks like, that it's not disparaging those parents who choose to still stay home, especially those who have very valid concerns. And that I would just hope that we continue that too. And I think that you illustrate that very well in how you presented this year. Like children, we stuck to our curriculum, and there was learning happening whether they were at home the whole entire year, were at home until the end of March and got to go to school for some points. So I don't think there's a question in there. It's just that I hope that we support all families and their choices and don't look down upon them on their choices, and recognize that while everyone 12 and above right now has the option, that there are parents who want their children to be vaccinated before they return, and that is really cool and okay.
Great. Agreed. Duly noted.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trustee Nzewi. Yes, I think that we have expressed that over the course of this year, that we are looking to serve all families regardless of where they're learning from. And I know staff is working really hard to make sure that there are flexible options to the extent feasible under state law in the fall. So yes, thank you. Other questions, comments on the fall? All right. So what I'm hearing is that in the fall, we're coming back full time, 5 days a week. Okay, just want to clarify that because sometimes I get that question again. Okay.
Still get it.
All right, and then there are options that we've had, as we always have had. We've always had independent study and home study options and alternative education options. So encourage people to explore our existing options, even as the staff and the state continue to figure out whether there's an additional option that needs to be designed for any particular situation. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, that takes us to our consent agenda 14.0. Items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved and adopted in a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. All right, do we have a motion on the consent agenda or any items to be pulled?
Madam President, Madam President, I move that the board adopt the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. Motion by Trustee Mayo, second by Trustee Mason, and thank you, Dr. Clark, for letting there be light.
On the dark without you, Doctor.
As usual, you bring us the light. Much appreciated. All right, we'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
Trustee Mason.
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. All right, that was our consent agenda. Okay, so that moves us into the business items of the evening. 17.1 is we already did 17.1. Woohoo! Well done, everyone. Okay, 17.2, review and potential approval of the 2020-2021 third interim cash flow and updated multi-year projection. Dr. Clark, and I see Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes, I'm happy to pass this along to Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. And Mario, if you could pull up the main presentation. And I'm going to assume that Mika is going to be coming and joining us shortly. We're all running back and forth. So we'll go ahead and start there. That's slide 2. And for some reason, well, actually, Mario, just want to let you know, for some reason, the very bottom of it is not visible. We'll just go with that because I know that the board has copies. There, you know what, that might be a little better right there. Nope. There you go. Try it like that. Now go to the second slide. We're good to go. Okay, we can see everything. All right, just wanted to make sure. So this is a typical budget timeline. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. And so this gives you a snapshot of exactly where we are. The items that you see there in bold are the items that are either taking place now or still need to take place. So in the month of May, we just had our governor's May revise about 2 weeks ago. This is a third interim report, and we are really on top of right now the budget adoption process. So we will bring a proposed budget to you in a couple of weeks. So the next slide, please. So what this slide
Just real
shows
quickly,
is.
Dr. Gonzalez, real quickly.
Yes.
But that May revise is really not done, correct? Because it has to go through the legislation and all that, and there could be changes coming.
Well, so what happens there is that's when they make the announcement. So if we pop up to January, the announcement was made in January about the proposed budget. And so, yes, what happens with the governor's May revise right now is the legislature's weighing in, the legislative analyst's office is weighing in. You've got all the groups in the state of California right now that are saying, no, you need more of this or less of this. And, you know, deferrals are a hot topic and COLA is a hot topic and paying down STRS and PERS, as we've all heard. So yes, the challenge that we have with the budgeting process in our state is that we are required to have our budget approved before the end of June. However, the state is not necessarily required to do that. So we will make our best estimate that we can, knowing that the state may throw a wrench in things as they did last year. So yes, thank you for that clarification. So the next slide, this really just summarizes, sorry, one slide back, Mario. This slide here is the financial reporting requirements. And what we are typically required to do is submit 2 interim reports. We always use SACS codes, so it is a similar structure that every single school district in the state of California uses. It offers our projections for the remainder of the school year. We are always required to talk about the current year +2. We call those the out years. The board has to approve and certify the first and second interim reports. You'll be asked to approve this tonight. However, it does not have the typical format that you would see. There are 2 requirements for this year. And so let me explain the financial reporting certifications, and Mario, that would be on the next slide. So a positive certification means that the district can meet its financial obligations for the current year and 2 subsequent years. We are coming off of 3 qualified interim reports, which means that in any one of the 3 years, we might not have been able to make our multi-year projections, which means basically after our reserves, we stay in the green for the first, second, or third year. And then a negative certification is when you cannot meet your financial obligations in 2 or more years. This is typically when you have someone appointed to come in, the superintendent is typically removed. The board is not given any ability to make any decisions for the school district. That is negative. It is very negative. And we are not in that situation there. What's really important to note about the third interim, and as one of our speakers mentioned earlier, it is a snapshot in time of April 30th. It is indeed that. So when we do first interim and when we do second interim and now third interim, it is reports run on a given day and only on that given day, which means the next day it can change and the day before it can change. It is a snapshot in time. It is a snapshot in time based on, Mario, next slide, please. Based on the most recent dartboard that we had available as of April 30th. That dartboard for us is produced by School Services of California. This is the dartboard that all school districts use in order to plan out their budgets. And so if you can sort of glance at this one, because what you'll see is they will tell us the COLA, or the cost of living adjustment, that we are supposed to be using. They let us know what different bands of students in different grades may be bringing in revenue for. They talk about the CPI, that's the Consumer Price Index, and what some of the expenses are there, what they're anticipating for lottery. This is, again, universally used by school districts across the state, snapshot as of April 30th. Next slide, please. We continue to use the COLA that existed on that date. We continue to use an annual step and column increase of 1.5%. However, as a staff, we are definitely looking at that number. We are using the enrollment calculations that we determined earlier this year that we are going to use for next year and then the following 2 years, and we are keeping our average daily attendance flat. Next slide, please. Some of the other components in it have to do with our unduplicated pupil count. It's important to know that this year our percentage dropped. And our percentage dropped, however, at any given time, you are using a 3-year average calculation. So this year, if we saw a decrease, it would affect us this year, the second year, and the third year. And then certainly if we can get those percentages higher, because, for example, we may have more students in specific unrepresented groups, unduplicated groups, or if we had, let's say, more students completing the federal meal application process, that would assist us. So STRS and PERS are still here as of April 30th, and the indirect cost rates as set by the state of California for individual school districts are here as well. Just to clarify a note on the indirect, what the state does is it looks at the indirect costs for every single school district, and it validates what it believes that ours is. Did have a conversation earlier today with the county office, and we're going to go back and see if there's any way that we can get that adjusted and try to make a really good argument there. And so that's an option that we're going to be taking a look at. The next 2 slides are 2 slides, and they are multi-year projections with the one-time funds and without the one-time funds. We are going to follow the advice of FCMAT, School Services of California, as well as the California School Boards Association, not only with this 3rd-year interim, but probably at least for the next 6 to 9 months, if not longer. We are going to be providing you 2 different budgets. We will show you what it looks like with one-time funds, and we will show you what it looks like without one-time funds. The importance of doing that is because we want to ensure that we are painting an accurate picture of our spending, particularly in some of our future years, once that funding goes away. And so it's just a way to be super transparent with what it is that we're doing. What you will see in this slide is that compared to the next slide, you will see a whole lot less red. Our red means that in specific areas, we are spending more than it is that we are bringing in. But what is important to note in this for the board and the public is that we want to take a look at our ending fund balance. And our ending fund balance is starting to look much healthier than it has been, at least in prior budgets. And it is exceptionally important for me to call out some individuals in the school district that I know have been working really hard on this. First of all, our Director of Fiscal Services, who happens to be sitting next to me, Mika Arbelbide, has done everything within her power and within her creative means, as has Sandra Inouye, she works on our position control, and I'll mess up her exact title, but they've both worked really hard to make sure that we're looking at all of our staff costs, that we are finding as many opportunities within the parameters of the one-time funds, with the recommendation of school services and others, to put any allowable expenses into some of those one-time funds after we cover the service needs of our students and make sure that our campuses are safe. And so there are many reports out there that I know that you've all seen that have talked about the importance of one-time funds being a way for districts that have had deficits and structural deficits to be able to really try to right the ship. I am pleased to say that that has worked very well in our district. We've had many conversations over the last 48 hours with Bill Clark, who's the deputy superintendent at the Contra Costa County Office of Education, as well as our fiscal advisor, Mike Berg, commending us on that work. And really that was led by Mika, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that. The next slide real quickly. Oops, sorry, Mario, go back. I apologize. This is without the one-time fund, so we just want to make sure that we're showing this slide as well. You know, again, and you know, I'm going to have you come back to another slide in just a second. I'm going to go back 2 more slides and then I'm going to come back. So I'm going to make Mario dizzy for a few minutes. The last thing I want to talk about real quickly is cash flow. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this has a lot of numbers. They are really super small. They have a whole lot of detail. And so Mika had the great idea to make this a little easier for you. So if we go to the next slide, what it does is it basically breaks down those key categories and it makes it into smaller chunks so that you can see it without needing much better, stronger glasses. What's important to note and what the county office wanted to make sure that it saw was that we are able to have the amount of cash that we need available in order to cover our expenses for this current fiscal year. This is the number one thing that they were most concerned with and would be concerned with in any school district. However, what sort of saved us in this situation is that our numbers are inflated right now because, as you are aware, the board approved moving forward with a TRAN, a tax revenue anticipatory note to the tune of $41 million. We know that we will have to pay that back now that the governor is not going to continue with the deferrals, with the exception of 1 month. It will give us an opportunity to pay some of that back sooner. Unfortunately, the fees that we have paid on it, we do not get a discount on. So that really takes care of cash flow. And then Mario, if we can just go back for 1 second to the slide that says multi-year projection with one-time funds. The reason that I want to go back to this slide is to note that this is actually what we were seeing as of April 30th. And what's important to note again is that healthy ending fund balance for a number of reasons. It's going to give us an opportunity to make sure we are covering the programs and services that our students need. And it is allowing us to move forward with the commitment of the board and of our superintendent to make sure that we are providing for our staff as much as possible in the area of raises. And so we are committed to working with the board and working as we move forward into budget development and certainly into next year to see what it is that we have available. But I want to let you know that with a healthier fund balance, it certainly means that we can start having those types of conversations where, quite honestly, for the last 11 or 12 months, we have not been able to do so. Mario, if you could just flip over to the very last slide. Just in quick review here, the Contra Costa County Office of Education did not require a full-blown third interim report. As soon as we did our second interim and the decision was made that they were going to have the fiscal crisis management and assessment team from the state come in and take a look at our practices across the board, our systems, provide recommendations for anything they think we can be doing differently. They let us know that they only required us to turn in an updated cash flow and a multi-year projection, again, as of April 30th. We look forward to hearing from FCMAT. We are hoping that they are able to do a board study session, perhaps the last week in June, and allow staff to receive the recommendations and start taking action on some of the things that they believe that we should be looking at across the board in our human resources and in our fiscal departments. We are continuing to work with our fiscal advisor, Mike Berg. We are in constant communication with the County Office of Education, but we're fortunate to say this evening that the third interim is ending on a high note. that we really look forward to closing this and trying to move forward with budget development and our proposed budget as quickly as possible. So at this point in time, I know that Mika and I are happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Trustee Mason.
I have a couple questions. So this, as of 4:30, does not include any California stimulus money or our American Rescue Plan money. It hasn't come through yet either.
Okay, so I apologize for not making that clarification. As of April 30th, there was no real determination on AB 86, including any of the timing of that, right? And we had not received the funds and we had also not had any plan to expend. So while we didn't include it, if we didn't include the revenue and include expenses, we haven't done anything with either with AB 86. There's two parts of that, one that we will talk about shortly, one that is the fund that is being used to cover the stipends that you approved earlier tonight. There are also two other amounts of money out there called ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. We are waiting for more details on ESSER 3 right now. None of those are included. Nothing that the governor brought up in his May revise, including proposed new programs, new funding. None of that is included unless it has been specifically put on the dartboard, because as we know, the sausage making is going to continue for what we hope is just another month. And then we will know how we can move forward.
And there's no California stimulus that's coming to school districts. Is that just for taxpayers?
That is correct.
Okay. But the asterisk that goes with all that is many of those funds are to be spent on specific things.
Absolutely. So all those funds, when they come in, all the revenue that is generated goes into the restricted category. It means that every single one of those has some type of string attached to it that says it's for these groups of students, it's for these types of programs. These are the allowable expenses. And so it becomes very difficult for us to try to say that let's say that we wanted to hire 40 new widgets. Like if it doesn't fit into the description of widgets somewhere in the plan, you cannot spend it for that. And every single one of those amounts of money has a different timeline and a different reporting feature, which we will show you in one of our subsequent presentations tonight.
And so it's going to be our job collectively to be thoughtful and intentional about what money we can use. For example, health and safety for windows, HVAC, fences, which would normally come out of our general fund, because then that'll free up general fund dollars, which are not one-time dollars, to move us ahead in the direction we want to go, correct?
That is correct.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying that. Trustees, other questions or comments? Trustee Nzewi?
I'll just say it louder for the people in the back. So when we use one-time funds, it frees up general fund money, which is why, I heard you explain, it's rosier outlook, because although it's one-time things for specific things, they may be things we would have spent money on anyway. And so it's like a different pot of money, which frees up our general fund to be spent however we decide. Okay, and second, I don't know if this is a really unreasonable request, and you can tell me that it is. So the amazing thing is that the legislature is almost always does better by the people than the governor does, no matter who the governor is. And the legislature has released their counter to the governor, which does even better for school districts. It pays all the deferments. It has a little bit higher COLA. It does all sorts of great things. And I wonder if, I don't know the timing of when we see, as you're working through the budget, as you get to start now tomorrow, working through the budgeting for next year, if we could see the different scenarios. Like if you have the governor's May revise, you have the legislature's proposals, what could it look like given those two? I don't know if that's. Oh,
so there's a term that I've often heard for that, and it's called shadow boxing. And the shadow boxing really comes in that we would think, okay, this might happen, or this might happen, or this might happen.
And it could be nothing, neither of those things. I understand that.
Absolutely. And I'll admit that last year when things were coming out and, the May revise, I was jumping to do that. And Bill Clark and Mike Berg sat me down and they said, you go like this. You have a dartboard that you work off of, and you work off of that dartboard until you hear something differently. So what I would suggest is we can spend all day building a bunch of different scenarios out. The only thing that it's going to do is take really crucial staff time right now at a really important moment in time. So what we would appreciate doing is waiting until some of those decisions are made and then knowing what we can do and can't do. Because, I'm hearing alternate things that the Legislative Analyst's Office is concerned about the super COLA, but want to have, more STRS and PERS paid down, right? And so we could spend all day doing all of this, but really what is most prudent with our time and effort is to go with the dartboard that was released, that's part of the May revise, and then sit back and see what else happens. Does that help?
Oh, I understand that. That's why I said, I don't know if this is too much to ask.
Well,
and I understand that, I'm not trying to, you have to get down to the business of crafting our budget.
Correct.
Based on a gazillion unknowns because of the timing is crazy. But luckily, what I'm hoping is because the legislature has come to agreement so early, it really is early. They've come to agreement between themselves, is that maybe these negotiations with the governor will come earlier, long before the 15th.
So if anybody in the public can't necessarily see me, I'm crossing my fingers, but I'm only crossing one hand.
Right. And that's really the challenge that school districts in California constantly face is, that I didn't understand when I was first coming into this system, is that while we as a school district need to not only provide a 1-year budget, but also a 3-year projection in order to show a positive certification that we can meet all of our obligations for 3 years, the timing is off as far as our one main source of income, which is the state, because we have to present our budget before we know for sure even what our income is from the state for the coming year. And then for the 3 years out, they only give us 1 year, not 3. So the 2 years out are always projections and our best guess as to what that is, which I would hope that our state could fix that system and give us the information sooner so that we could actually plan more adequately for 1 year and for 3 years out. But this is the system that we're in. And so when we get to the budget, and I know right now we're talking about the third interim. Next school board meeting will be for the public hearing on the budget, and then the actual vote on the budget is at the end of June. But the other thing I believe that happens is after we have the complete information from the state, we also can make adjustments to our budget in the fall with the new information, correct?
Correct. So every time we have an interim, it's really our opportunity to go back and make those changes. And we always have the ability as well to do a 45-day revised budget. Certainly, I know that's going to make Mika hyperventilate a little bit, but we can do a 45-day revised budget. If anything major changes, especially if the state budget isn't approved by the end of June. I mean, I know, but there have been those years, right? We know that there were those years where it was like July, August, September. I mean,
Okay, other questions or comments?
I can't remember that one. Thank you.
On the third interim? Any other questions, comments? Okay, I just had one, which is just to point out, I think I appreciate Dr. Gonzalez that you, when you went through the positive, qualified and negative, to explain that we are not in the negative.
Correct.
We are not at risk of state receivership at the moment. That's not something that we're facing.
Correct.
Whenever we've used that term, it's that we are looking out 3 years, and that possibly in the third year that could be a scenario that could happen. So just want to clarify that for the public, that we are not under state receivership. We are not even close to state receivership. But what we are doing is being fiscally responsible and making the decisions now so that we don't come anywhere close to that. So I really appreciate you clarifying that. And then also, I appreciate that you talked about how we do what this shows. What this does show is that we have the cash needed for the current fiscal year. And that the part of the reason for that is that we took out the TRAN, the cash loan. But I just wanted to also point out that that TRAN was not like as a result of some sort of financial mismanagement of our district. The reason we needed a TRAN, which was something that districts across the state needed was because the state deferred their payments to us. They did cash deferrals, which then meant we couldn't count on the usual cash. Am I saying that correctly?
Absolutely. What the state did is just what it did in the Great Recession of 2008, 9, and 10, where they gave us IOUs. So we still have to pay our employees, we still have to pay our bills, we still have to have the water running and the lights on, and they gave us IOUs for 5 months of this school year. Correct.
Great, okay, great. So thank you. So really what I'm seeing here and what I appreciate with all of our fiscal staff is that we are in good, in terms of our fiscal health, we are in good health. We have the cash we need for the current fiscal year, and we're going to move forward to make the best decisions we can moving forward. So thank you. All right. So we need to take action on this.
Yep. I would move that we approve the 2020-2021 third interim cash flow and updated multi-year projection.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Mayo. Any further discussion? All right, we'll take it to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Mayo,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much to all of our fiscal staff. All right. So that moves us to item 17.3, review and potential approval of comprehensive school safety plans. Dr. Clark.
Yes, so for this item, I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Sachs and Mr. Alvarado to present this item.
Good evening, distinguished members of the board. Education Code Section 3281 mandates that each individual school site develop as well as review and update yearly a comprehensive school safety plan. The safety plan is developed not only by our administrators, but it is done in conjunction with a council, with a safety council, as well as a safety planning committees for each individual schools. The safety plans are intended, of course, to be relevant and individual to each individual school site. Safety for purposes of the safety plans means includes every aspect of social, emotional, as well as physical safety, not only for our students, but also for our staff and for all, and to work with our community. The safety plans are developed in conjunction with local first responder and local officials who work and also work with our school site administrators in developing and updating the safety plans. In this case, we are bringing to you our safety plans as if they have been developed by each of our individual sites. We are presenting to you 3 sample sites. However, each individual site has created a safety plan. Those have been made available both in the individual schools' websites as well as in the district's website. We have uploaded redacted sites, plans, which are done so in order to preserve certain issues that are confidential or that may not be divulged to the community. We are lucky and thankful to have before us 3 principals.
Absolutely, and I just want to recognize Kelly Cooper from Northgate High School, John Pierce from Fair Oaks Elementary, and Eric Wood from Riverview Middle School, whose plans were identified as one as being complete and were provided as samples. If the public do have specific questions about their site plan and they'd like to see it in a little bit more detail, they can always make an appointment with their site administrator in order to take a look at the document. But for right now, they are coming forward for review. And as always, they're living documents. God forbid we should have no more global anything. But in the event there are changes that need to be made, the school sites would take that into account, update them as needed, and they would come back to the board for approval.
That's right. And they are living documents as well, in the sense that they contemplate future events such as training, as well as drills and so forth that need to take place in order to have all of the staff and students prepared in the event of an emergency. So with that, we are presenting to you these sample sites as well as all of the safety plans that have been created by all of the sites for your approval And we put it up to the board for, if they have any questions, to our distinguished principals.
All right, thank you very much. Trustees, do we have any questions? Trustee Nzewi.
Thank you. I just want to, this may seem minor, but I really appreciate in the safety plans, including my own school, my daughter's own school, the simplification of the dress code. And I know like people don't think about that being as part of safety, but it clearly is because it's required in the safety plan. But our dress code policies over time have historically really policed the bodies of girls and especially Black girls. And so I appreciate that. I see a lot of, you have to wear clothes and shoes. And that makes it much simpler and prevents unnecessary humiliation and pulling out of students from their learning time. So I hope that that movement continues, if not making a blanket policy district-wide.
That's a really good point, Trustee Nzewi, and that also relates to our Pride resolution here. If someone is not identifying with particular gender, but if we have plans and dress codes that are gender-based, then that becomes an issue as well. So yes, much appreciated. Any other comments, questions? Trustee Mayo.
I appreciate the time that these safety plans take. I know it's a task that seems burdensome, but it's so important, especially for those of us that think about worst case scenarios. My husband is in fire protection, so this is something that is a frequent discussion in our household. There's one sheet in the document that's common to all of them that has the emergency contact or it has a list of phone numbers with agencies on it. And my recommendation would be, and I'm not asking for the change right now, is next year we consider adding the area code for each of those phone numbers. Because if the phone system is down, someone may use a cell phone, and if Mrs. Mason lives in El Cerrito, her phone may have a 510 cell phone, area code. So it's important in some instances for those phone numbers to be complete if someone has to use a phone that originates from outside that area. So that would be one request that I would make.
Thank you. We appreciate that recommendation, that we do need to be thorough in doing the safety plans, and we do appreciate that, and we will definitely adopt that going forward.
All right, thank you. I know one other thing that I've heard from various city council members and mayors is that they really appreciate that each of you as principals have incorporated, members of the city in making these safety plans, and that really helps them to be able to respond to anything that might be needed on campus. So much appreciated.
I would also like to thank the school site councils as well as the safety committees at the different school sites that were instrumental in working on the plans this year.
Very good point. Thank you. Yes, you can see on the safety plans which parents and community members and staff were involved. And that for anyone out there who is interested, contact your principal and volunteer to be a part of it, because it is really important work. And that I appreciate that all the plans can be found at mdusd.org/safety plans. So we hope that these are all incidents that don't happen, but we want to be ready in case they are. So yes. Any other questions or comments? All right, do we have a motion?
I was going to say, because who knew that we have a pandemic in the past? Now we know. Okay, I would make the motion that we approve the comprehensive school safety plans.
Thank you.
I'll
Do we have-
second.
Okay. All right, motion by Trustee Mason, second by Trustee Nzewi. Okay, getting feedback. Okay, all right, any other discussion? Take it to a vote. All right, Trustee Mason.
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much, principals, for your time coming out here tonight and for all of your work to keep everyone safe. Okay. Okay, that moves us to item 17.4, review and potential approval of the initial successor agreement proposals for the clerical, secretarial, and technical unit, CST, Local 1, and Mount Diablo Unified School District.
Yep, and Dr. Scudero is going to take this item.
For your review and potential approval regarding the initial successor agreement proposals for both CST and MDUSD. Pleased to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, trustees, any questions? Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move that the board approve the successor agreement proposals between clerical, secretarial, and technical unit, Local 1, and the Mount Diablo Unified School District.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Mayo, second by trustee Mason. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll put it to a vote. Trustee Mayo,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, that takes us to 17.5, review and potential approval of the 2021 single plan for student achievement mid-year budget adjustments.
Yes, I know that Jen Sachs and Stephanie Roberts are going to be doing this next item. They're going to come sit up here.
Thank you very much. I know we're moving through quickly here, aren't we? Having an efficient board meeting, all right.
I will not complain.
Whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. So this is actually something that generally has been on complaint, but we did want to highlight the fact that when there are shifts in the restricted program budgets that school sites do allocate and they work with their school site council on, if it's more than 10%, that is an adjustment to the budget that needs to be brought back to the board. So as you see, it's not a full approval of the single plan again. It's just kind of a very summarized budget sheet, which shows you where in the plan that they've adjusted the budget. And so that is what's being brought this evening for approval.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2020, 2021 single plan student achievement mid-year budget adjustments.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee McFerrin. Any other discussion? All right, we'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
trustee Mayo.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, that takes us to 17.6. This is a public hearing of resolution 2021-75, authorizing energy service contract for HVAC upgrades to Northgate High School. So we will open up our public hearing now. And I don't believe that we have any public comment. Is that correct at this point in time? All right, Dr. Clark, any comments on this issue? Seeing no public comment, I will close the public hearing. All right, any other information that you wanted to provide staff on this issue?
If there are any questions, we're happy to answer those.
Trustees, any questions? Okay, great. So as it says in the summary here, this resolution and proposal will return to the June 9th, 2021 board meeting for final discussion and possible award by the governing board of the Mount Diablo Unified School District. Thank you. Okay. All right, item 17.7, review and a potential approval of the AB 86 Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant application. Dr. Clark.
So thank you very much for having this on the agenda this evening. This is actually a wonderful opportunity where we're bringing forward the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan. And if you wouldn't mind bringing up the presentation. I think keep the slide deck.
The top one.
Yes, there we go. So under AB 86, school districts have been provided expanded learning opportunities grant funds. And this is again, an exciting opportunity where they're really wanting to support school districts, most importantly, our students, in taking a look at not only summer enrichment programs as well as academic supports, but taking a look at the fall and then having funding available all the way through the end of August 2022. Next slide. What's important to know about this plan, as well as all of the other plans that actually Dr. Clark had mentioned, our local control accountability plan, our SACE plan, the I said the LCAP, the SACE plan, as well as the ELOP, which is what we're talking about tonight, is that we continue to focus on our programs. How are we going to enrich the education for students? How are we going to measure success over time? And then how are these metrics be shared with our community? Next slide.
So what this slide shows is it shows how we are not thinking about things in isolation, but we are really trying to look at all of the funds that we have available, that we are building out plans that include references to those funds so that we are able to provide more transparency to the public. And that especially when it comes to some of our one-time funds, that we're looking at immediate needs that we have, as well as other enhancements that we know are part of the grant or funding source options that are allowable. Next slide, please. What we want to show with this one is there's a whole lot of data on here, and this shows what we're actually trying to track on a very regular basis with all of our one-time funds. And so the arrow there shows the funds or the revenue source that we're specifically talking about this evening. We call it ELO, Expanded Learning Opportunities, for those of us that don't necessarily like acronyms, but it talks about where the funding derived from. So it is a component of Prop 98. The spending deadline is August of 2022, which basically would take us current year of summer school, future school year in 21-22, and then we would just have the final opportunity in summer school of next summer. There's a specific revenue code, so if we were to run a SACS report, if you will, it would come up under the number of 8590. Next slide, please. This breaks down the numbers of funding sources as well as the timelines for those. And so what I really want the board and the public to see on this one is in regards to the Expanded Learning Opportunities, ELO. The funding for that does need to be expended by August of 2022. And there's an additional component there that you see. It's called ELO Paras, and we'll talk about that one in just another few slides.
Next slide. Thank you. Some of the things as we were considering writing the grant and creating the plan was really looking at, what have we learned thus far through our review with the strategic instructional review with CCEE? What are we hearing from our public? What do our students need? Because we're coming back to the fall with a completely different experience. With every grant, you do have to think about it's one time. So we need to focus on what can we do in a short term that's going to give us the best bang for our buck. And then what services do we currently already have? Next slide, please. One of the things I think we did a really effective job is crosswalking our LCAP goals, the focus around ELO, because there are 7 key areas, taking the recommendations from the SRI review, and then looking at how are they relating to coherence, equity, accountability, and autonomy. So I really feel like we did a really effective job of making sure that how we're spending this one-time grants is aligned to the work that we're doing, and would help us with our sustainability for continuing these services moving forward. Next slide, please.
And so that's why when you do see the LCAP in a couple of weeks, you're going to see references to ELO Action 2 or ELO Action 6, because we are trying to have everybody kind of understand that we don't want to duplicate the funds or the expenses, but we do want to show that level of alignment, because what's mentioned in both they're really being woven together in a coherent plan. So as we took a look at the feedback and the information, that we gathered, not only for this plan, but also as we worked through the LCAP document that is in draft form right now that will be released in the next 2 weeks. It's our advisory groups, our anti-racist, anti-biased, our district English language review, our English language advisory committee, our parent advisory committee, our student advisory committee. That was a great group to talk to. And then we had community meetings and we had different conversations with labor reps as well as parents and guardians. And so all of that was more like a qualitative feedback, as well as we took a look at some of the survey results as we went through this year about how parents were feeling about their educational experience. Of course, there's the quantitative data, which is a little bit more of, in certain situations, dashboard based, but it does not mean that we're not looking for other more inclusive metrics. Surveys of students, how are they feeling? Focus groups with them. No one will tell it, as it is. And if you do walk into a high school classroom and you ask them about what's been going on the last, 10 years of education, they'll give it to you straight. And so that voice is going to be incredibly important as we circle back with them, as well as looking at some of these data points to determine our impact on student achievement, as well as thoughts about the climate on our campuses.
Next slide. So what we're showing here is the total amount of the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant. The total amount that we will receive is $19.49 million. 50% of that is coming in May, June, and I believe the funds from May have already come in. The next amount will come in the next school year. There are some specific stipulations with this one that are a little different than some of the other one-time funds that we received over the course of the last year. The first one is that at least 85% of the grant expenditures have to be somehow related and tied to in-person services. So really this is people, programs, and services that are directly touching students. The second component of this one is that at least 10% of the grant must be used to hire paraprofessionals to provide supplemental instruction and support throughout the program. So that could be, it could be new staff that is hired, it could be existing staff where we are extending their time. So there's a number of different ways to do that, and we are taking a look at that. But that amount comes to $1.9493 million. And we can then also expend up to 15% of the grant to increase or improve services for students who are participating in distance learning. And so one of the things that you will see as we move forward is that we are looking at Chromebooks and moving to a one-to-one initiative to make sure that those devices are able to assist us not only with distance learning. Never know what may happen in the fall, right? If there were a resurgence of the pandemic or whatever it might be, but up to 15% can be used for things relating to distance learning for students. Next slide, please. So what I just want to share is that the next two slides, what we did was we took the 7 broad categories, and those are the ones that are in bold. And then what we did was, based again on all the feedback that my colleagues have mentioned, we took a look at all of the allowable expenses and we put all of those in here and then we totaled them. So when you see the attached document with all of the yellow, that is one of the appendices for tonight's board meeting, you'll see item number 1 called out, and you'll see that amount, and item number 2 and that amount, and item number 3. And so we have more depth here for you that my colleagues can share.
So as Lisa shared, the grant allows us to spend the money in these 7 areas. We don't have to necessarily cover all 7 areas, and a lot of them overlap. So our crosswalk document does show that, but we are proposing to utilize about 4.2 million on expanded learning. So summer school this fall, summer school next fall, expanded, which is so funny, we call them after school, but expanded learning, after school programs at some of additional sites or serving more students. Also some online tutoring and really connecting to doing some college career and industry field trips so that our students have that hands-on experience. The second area is accelerating progress to close learning gaps. So we're looking at about 6.3 million there. A lot of those funds are around paraprofessionals focusing on academic as well as social emotional, a little bit more sections to support AVID, some continuation of our garden project, and a focus on educational technology programs. 3 is a really hot topic that we've been talking about all year long around our student supports and addressing barriers. So we're really proposing to add some additional counselors to our sites to ensure that every site has at least some counselor attached to their school, a really intentional and strategic focus on MTSS, incorporating staff training and implementation, as well as SEL programs across the district. In addition to, we've heard it very loud and clear, we need to target some additional support for our Hope and our foster youth. So there are some staff and supports in that arena. And then a couple of other little pieces around teletherapy, telehealth, and kind of some support around our attendance. Next slide, please. The 4th area is around community learning hubs and technology. So Lisa mentioned that earlier, a focus on one-to-one, and then expanding some of our teacher refresh programs with our Chromebooks, our hotspots and our routers. And as we've heard a lot of our students, some had success this year, some didn't. And a lot of our students are needing that credit recovery. So we're proposing to add some additional teacher time so that students will have more access to gaining that credit. And Naviance and Apex are Apex is a program that supports credit recovery, and Naviance is helping to kind of plan for your 4 years. The last 2 is additional academic support. So that's a lot of that technology and software systems that are going to really help us have that cycle of inquiry and using data to know what we're doing well and what we need to focus on, and helping with the improvements with students. And then lastly, a lot of this can't happen without staff training. So focusing on SEL, intervention, trauma-informed practices, not only for classified, but certificated as well. And then we really see an opportunity to really engage our student voice and creating some more opportunities for more student involvement in part of their learning. The attached grant is included on the docket, as well as an attachment around the staffing. We're very clear that these are one-time funds. And so if we're proposing additional staff, that we will be monitoring that. And when the grant ends, we either determine, are there other funds to pay for it? And if they aren't, then those positions potentially could be, eliminated. But with all grants, this is part of what we do. And we do have to look at this, even though it's a $19 million grant, we do have to take it into consideration because we need to sustain these. So part of what we're proposing is really aligned to the LCAP, which I think for the next board meeting, when the board sees and the community sees, there is a lot of alignment. So we're using these one-time funds to really try to beef it up and then know what we need to sustain at the end of these 2 years.
So I want to point out that there is also another handout. And so Mario, if you could pull up the other appendix, I believe it's called New Services of Personnel. And here's what we're doing. First of all, there is a cardinal rule that says you don't use one-time money on things that eat and breathe. With that said, you then have the stipulations of the grant that specifically say you have to at least spend $1.9 million on people. So here's what we are doing, open to the board's suggestions on how we can make this a little more transparent if possible. But what we are going to do is for the positions that we are adding and or enhancing, and that is all that is on this document right here. So if there's like hourly work and other things, it is not part of this. This document that you see is about one-time positions, and some of them are multi-year, one-time positions. All of these have a start time and an end time. And we want to make sure that we are providing this to the board at least on a quarterly basis, so that in the future, when we need to eliminate these positions because these one-time funds have run out, we have been entirely transparent from beginning to end as to what the positions were and how long we intended to use them. Now, certainly, we do always have the option that if there was another funding source, like there's another pot of one-time money that comes at the end of the next school year and we can extend things, certainly that would be an option. But for now, our plan is to make sure that we're very clear and very transparent with the board, with the public, and with our staff of what we are intending to do with these funding sources.
So as we're looking at this plan, it has actually a mixture of items that we've moved in to the plan, into this one-time grant in order to free up, as it's been mentioned a couple different times, general fund dollars for other activities. But then there are things in here that we do know are hopefully gonna move us forward at an accelerated rate that we may not need in a year, that same level of service. But to Dr. Gonzalez's point, it will need to be revisited to determine whether or not we need to find alternative funding sources to support any activities or positions that we feel are critical for our families and our students. And so this is here for hopefully action tonight, because June 1st is the deadline of when this needs to be submitted. But of course, it is a plan, and it's something that will give us guidance. But as things change, as Trustee Cowan did say, sometimes different decisions need to be made about funding. And so we would be able to bring that back for a discussion.
All right, thank you very much for that comprehensive presentation. Much appreciated. I know so much work goes into that, and especially when you're aligning all of the different programs and all of the different funding sources. So trustees, I'll open it up to questions or comments. Trustee Mason?
It's all well and good to say that we're going to hire counselors, but there's going to be an end date. But then we're going to be the ones getting screamed at because you added counselors, now you're taking them away. So it sounds good, but the public doesn't see it that way. Was there any thought given at all, since it's expanded learning, and I'm assuming the objective was to try to help our kids catch up for, I agree with Dr. Clark, they've learned this year, but they've probably not as rapidly as they had before, because it's only for a year or two, to look at, and I've heard of other states and areas doing this and different webinars I've been on, adding an additional period to the school day, adding additional time to the school day, providing before school care as well as after school care, doing things that we haven't done in order to try to give this generation that's going through that boost they need to catch up. Because it's, and I'm not criticizing, but this looks like, which I get, you're trying to say, well, we're already doing this, let's beef it up and try to free up general funds. But there's a lot of people there, and that makes me nervous.
So one thing that was mentioned just briefly was that we are expanding our after-school programs. So at a couple of school sites, which is great. These are sites that don't generally receive that level of support. I think also something to highlight is the additional sections at the high school level to embed within the school day credit recovery options. Generally, when we are taking a look at FTE projections with our secondary schools, that's not something we generally are able to consistently build into their schedule, and they're just scraping by with whatever they can find in order to do it. With this plan, this is something where that is something that is an absolute, that every site will have additional credit recovery in order to help students either just to catch up. To your point about additional, before school and after school, the programs that are currently running, expanding the numbers. So it is something that'll support more students and more communities and more families, but it does feel like something that we've done in the past. It's just that we've just expanded and enriched it. Something also that's happening during the day, which is part of this extended learning plan, or connected to some of these activities in here, are as we're looking at providing prep for elementary teachers in 4th and 5th grade. We are expanding the number of intervention teachers that are going to be on these campuses. And this is something that is very, very different. So as they're looking to support 4th and 5th grade teachers to make sure their contractual prep is taken care of, they will have additional time in their day to provide that level of acceleration support, enrichment support, or possibly intervention that might be needed for students that are in need of that in order to do this, we'll just accelerate learning. Learning loss is not something that we are focusing on moving forward into the fall. We really want to reframe that to talk about our focus being on learning acceleration for all kids. So that is an area that's a bit different than in the past, but your point is very well taken. To have the state on one hand say one-time money should not be spent on things that eat. And at the same time, you're going to write in that 10% needs to be spent on individuals, does give a mixed message. So it is a risk we do take as we add positions into the plan, but it's also one of the requirements. So it's that balance for sure.
Trustee Nzeri?
Well, I think you can't accelerate learning or do any all the good things for children without people. This is a high touch industry and most everything we do requires people. And we do have a lot of dependence on technology, and technology makes things more accessible and easier for a lot of people, but we still need people. I'm just curious, how hard do you think it will be able to recruit for these positions, especially the one-year ones? And the majority, I think, maybe half, I'm not sure, are 1 year, and the whole state gets this money. So we're competing with everybody. And the year ends in August, the 1 year ends in August. So like, what's the outlook?
HR company.
I would say that one thing we're exploring, and we have a meeting tomorrow with CSEA, and we have discussed the challenging nature of this, where they don't have any blinders on, that they understand that this could be that we're hiring people and then having to let them go. However, knowing that we have the opportunity, at least, even though it may be temporary, we are discussing tomorrow the idea of hiring bonuses in terms of getting and attracting people here. So that is part of our conversation yesterday. I'm sorry, tomorrow. Sorry. So I'm looking forward to that with them, and they seem pretty open to the idea of us crafting something that we can bring for your consideration at the next board meeting.
Other comments, questions? Trustee McFerrin?
I'll just say briefly that I'm really excited to see counselors addressed. I went to, I think it was the first mental health webinar by the district, and I was keeping a close eye on the comments, and it just kept lighting up with, we need more counselors. So I think this is addressing a need that our community knows we have. And I think I'm really focused on kind of the immediate future. And so, I'm just happy to know that we have this opportunity now for our students that are going to be coming back to our schools, in August.
Trustee Mayo? You look like you were about to say something.
No, I'm just trying
gonna
to
let you all speak before I say.
The challenge for me is the same as what Mrs. Mason said, is it looks like we're hiring staff for 1 year, but we know in a year that it's going to be very difficult to let our family members go again. The one thought I had was there will be some retirements, so people will shift perhaps between some of these positions and move into positions where folks are retiring. We're going to have to keep very close track on all of that. The other question I had was, would some of our folks that are currently employed in different positions be willing to shift to these roles? I don't know. And maybe it's one and the same. So I'm just not thinking in the same, I'm not on the same railroad track as you are. Let me put it that way. I am interested in the plan. My one question that came to mind is, how are we going to evaluate the success of all of this so we know what to continue with the following year?
And I think that is one of the challenges for sure, as we are looking at the SIR report. One thing they say is, when we talk about monitoring of success and implementation, we've got all sorts of things on documents. But is it being done consistently? Is it being brought to the board for review on a scheduled, calendar? So this is something that we're certainly going to be drafting. Actually, it's in a draft form right now as the team is finishing up 1 year and looking at the fall. So then we do have not only the metrics to share with you, but also ones that our administrators can look at. So then they can talk to their staff about whether or not it's impacting student success. I do think there's a variety of items in here, which as we work with our advisory teams, and ask for their thoughts and ideas about, how is this impacting themselves? A lot of this is about that social emotional support between the California Healthy Kids Survey, between certain focus groups with our advisory groups. we will be able to get a pretty good handle. And then as we look towards the future and different other types of one-time money or restricted funds specifically for these areas, because we know this isn't going away. We've been through this for quite a while, and this has significantly impacted the lives of our students and the adults in our system. So as we look over time, what is this going to look at as we receive additional funds, hopefully in the future, to determine, to your point, Trustee Mayo, what do we need to continue? What are we not sure we need to continue? And what do we know has not shown us the return on investment that we thought it would in order to move forward?
And with, the evaluation, we know that there has to be some way that the students are assessed, and yet we don't want to test students anymore. We want them to have learning experiences rather than sitting at a computer or with a pencil and taking a test. So those are my struggles with all of this. But as I listened to the webinars, and those of you that participated in the CSBA and all those webinars, Dennis Myers made a very important point to me. That I took away is that this governor and this legislature are planning on going back and creating categoricals. And this is sort of an example of that, and how all of these are going to continue to overlap one another and create new requirements that are going to be harder for us to move forward. I mean, when we had local control, we could look at our student information and perhaps decide more intelligently how to move forward. And not that you haven't presented an outstanding plan, that's not what I'm saying, but perhaps it would have looked different if the money didn't have strings attached to it. And so I appreciate the time that has been spent with this, and we have to move forward because June 1st is the turn-in date. I recognize that this has taken a lot of time and a lot of serious evaluation, and you are looking at how all of these things intersect, and that's what's important.
Thank you, Trustee Mayo. Yeah, I think that is a concern that as the state decides to move more to categoricals, that means that a lot of our staff time goes into which pot of money can be spent on which thing, even when they do overlap. And really, we want to be focused on what the students need rather than spending all of our time, just adjusting which grant and which piece goes where. So, but that's something you have to do. However the funding comes is what we need to meet all the requirements. So I think that's what you're doing here. I want to appreciate your intentional use of one-time funds for things like the one-to-one Chromebooks. I know that there were other districts that had gone one-to-one many years ago, and we weren't there yet when COVID hit, unfortunately. But it's not a plan that's only for COVID situations, right? It is the technology of the future that we're already in, and it does provide that home to school connection, especially if we can continue to work with our cities and our state to make sure that there is broadband access for all, so that students who take a Chromebook home actually can still use it in that location. But one-time use of funds, that's a really great place for that. I also really appreciate your focus on student voice. I think that's something that we've progressed in a number of ways, including our student board member on the governing board, and many student voices throughout our district. But there's always more to do, and they bring so much perspective because that is our customer here, right? And their voices are so important. So I appreciate that as well. I did have a couple of questions. One is the staff training section. I wonder if that training is planning to include anything that was mentioned earlier this evening when it comes to inclusive school settings, whether it's around, training on gender identity and that sort of thing, or bias and racism, as well as whether restorative justice is anything, training for staff on that, whether that's something that has been or is being considered.
Yes, those are topics that are on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And then also, another thing that I've seen out there as an idea, or it's been successful in some places. And I don't know if it's in this plan at this point, but just to throw out there for you is the summer bridge idea. And seeing it, CCE just had a report on that that was showing a lot of success in bringing, like, it's particularly been targeted at incoming ninth graders to really get them socially and emotionally connected to their school before they arrive. I know our schools have had Link Crew to do that. I don't know if we've had a lot of time before the first day of school for them to get acclimated, or whether that's feasible this summer.
Well, I know that's being discussed about, I mean, the orientation for the eighth graders. And so I know Director Samantha Allen has been working with the high school principals on that. And more discussions will come once graduations get put to bed. But, you know, there are opportunities as we're looking to next summer. Bridge programs is something that actually we have some experience with, actually myself in another district, where actually eighth graders were enrolled in classes during the summer where they actually earned elective credit for high school. So it wasn't necessarily, let's say, math credit, but it was a boot camp. It was like an algebra boot camp or a biology boot camp, in order to make sure that they had the opportunities to really get front loaded prior to the next school year. So we tried to leave it a little bit vague, so we had some ability to kind of move around, but that is something that was brought up as we were trying to launch this summer. But with everything going on, it was definitely something that was mentioned as an idea for summer 2022.
Yeah, fantastic. Wonderful. Okay, great. Do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion. I think it's unfortunate, and I'm sure it's from the state, not us, that these things aren't done in such a way that we have more time to really reflect and do the best job we can do. It's always like meet the deadline. So that's unfortunate. But having said that, we don't want to turn away money. So potential approval of AB 86 expanded learning opportunity grant application.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Mayo. Any further discussion?
I just had one. Say in December, we decide you want to do something different. Is there an opportunity to resubmit a component of the plan, or are we committed to the plan as it's more or less presented?
From my understanding, this is a plan that is held internally. So in the event we're audited, it's something that we have to show. We have to show our board minutes that it was approved by the board by June 1st. It's one of those legal regulations. But after that, if there's a significant shift, we want to identify a completely other area that is not something where, you know, it falls under any of these activities or categories. It would be our responsibility to bring it back, and we could have a discussion about whether or not there's a different, we need to make a different decision and vote again.
And the only reason I bring that up is in the event that the legislature goes wild and crazy with the upcoming budget, would we want to look at all of the monies again differently and perhaps be strategic with everything? Because right now we just have this one piece.
And it is a puzzle for sure, which is why these documents and these crosswalks and these timelines, no other time really in history has this been such a crazy puzzle of all these pieces together with all different types of reporting. And you have to be careful that you're not, you know, counting the expense in multiple budgets for the same thing. And so it's certainly something that I really give a lot of credit to Dr. Gonzalez and her team as they consistently look and they strategize so we can maximize all of our funding sources. And so as was discussed earlier, we've got CARES 2, we've got CARES 3, we've got ESSERS, we've got any type of acronym you could find. It's a great problem to have, that we have these funding sources coming in, but it does cause quite a bit of a discussion about what to use, how to use it, when to use it by.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And I think on that point, actually, you had mentioned the quarterly reporting on these positions so that we're always aware and ready to sunset them when it's time. But that quarterly report would be an excellent time to bring up any changes that may need to happen as far as the overall plan and the measurable results that we're looking at. So great. All right. Any other comments? Should we take it to a vote? All right. Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
Trustee Mason.
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
I also vote yes, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much for all of your work, and we look forward to seeing how it progresses. Okay, so that moves us to item 17.8, review and potential approval of the job description title for Administrator, School and Community Services to Assistant Director, School and Community Services. Dr. Clark.
Yeah, Dr. Aguilar is going to take this item.
Thank you very much. So this position is something that needs kind of a little bit of history going back to explain where we got here. It won't take long. Sorry, Dr. Clark. But anyhow, so it used to be that the position was filled by an administrator. And then about 5 years ago, they switched a lot of the funding to the county office. So a huge amount of funding went away and the county was to provide those services. And our department went from the one administrator and 7 social workers down to essentially 3 social workers. Now, coincidentally, right around the same time as those things happened, we ended up not meeting our expected performance targets for our foster youth and homeless youth, right? At the same time as we were cutting our programs due to the budget shifting. So at this point in time, we want to make sure that we're aligning the work we're doing with our instructional targets, such as the ones identified in the SIR report from CCEE. So if you read through the last document, this position is in there. The reason there's no funding attached is because when we're creating the positions, obviously there's the job description and the actual creation of the position, and then the filling of the position with the actual person. So what this job description does is, as the county has taken over the program, when we ran it internally, it was more of a service provider. The administrator actually provided clinical supervision to the in-house social workers. They supervised the interns. They did a lot of work with providing tutoring supports and those types of things all through our internal processes. Earlier on this evening in the consent agenda, you already approved the foster focus agreement through the Sacramento County Office of Education, which will link the 2 systems together. So it'll be far easier to identify our foster youth. It's still a bit of a challenge to identify our homeless youth, especially at this time. So the job duties of this position have shifted considerably from a service provider to actually somebody who is more of collaborating with the county office, overseeing the existing staff that we have here. We've added a counselor to the program as part of the ELOP plan. We've also added intervention and enrichment teacher to the program. So the duties have changed significantly. In addition, in the 4 years interim period, we did a couple years ago align all of our administrator positions to assistant directors, and this position is brought commensurate with those other positions, but for a shorter calendar year than the existing student services director, assistant director.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so let's for a motion first, and then if there's any questions. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the revision of the job description title for Administrator, School, Community Services to Assistant Director, School and Community Services.
Thank you, Trustee Mayo. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Trustee Mayo, second by Trustee McFerrin. Any discussion? I just want to say thank you for bringing this forward, because my understanding was back in the day that we had the full program, that it was an award-winning program actually recognized as a model program across the state. And it was unfortunate that we had to face those budget cuts over that period of time, and the loss of support to these students to the degree that it had been before. So we clearly need to get back to that. And this appears to be a road to get there in conjunction with the rest of the plans. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we'll put it to a vote. Trustee Mayo.
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin.
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
Trustee Mason.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, all right. We're almost to the end here, everyone. With that moves us to item 17.9, review and potential approval of Board Resolution 2021-69 for declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Dr. Clark.
Good evening again. Regulations with the CTC or Commission on Teacher Credentialing do require that we submit an annual declaration of need regarding the numbers we anticipate hiring of staff under emergency permits for the upcoming school year. We have some preliminary estimates on this item, so we're asking for your approval as we move forward.
I would make a motion that we approve the board resolution 21/21-69 for declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
A second.
Thank you. All right, motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Nzewi. Any discussion? Okay, we'll put that to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Mayo.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, so 17.10, review and potential approval of 2021 summer school one-time compensation rate.
Yep, thank you and good evening again. We have in front of you what represents what we believe is an opportunity this summer. As you do know, staff has been working very hard to expand what we can offer for students this summer. And so as we began a conversation a number of weeks ago, and we looked at increasing the rates to attract more staff, we decided to be as equitable as we could and do that across the board for summer school staff. And so that's before you this evening, requesting your approval. So we have some backup when auditors come next year and say, how did you make that decision?
Absolutely. Thank you. Do we have a motion on this item?
We'll move to approve the 2021 summer school one-time compensation rate.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee McFerrin. Any discussion? Okay, sounds like a good plan, given that we really need to hire staff and we really need qualified staff and we're competing with all of the other districts on this. So, and I know teachers have been working hard all year and they're tired as well. So let's fully staff where we can to be able to really provide quality summer programs. All right, with that, we will take it to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
trustee Mayo.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so our final item of the night is board member reports. Item 18.1. Let's see, who would like to go first?
I have one.
Oh, yes. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Clark.
So
Go
again,
ahead.
I'm speaking on behalf of trustee Alas, and she has a student board member report. This is brief. This past Saturday, I advertised through social media, the Friday letter, and through principals about a Q&A session with me that any prospective student board member candidates could attend. I had several students attend and offered advice on the application. I finished my time talking to families at the Monument Crisis Center this past Wednesday, and am happy to say I was able to talk to dozens of Spanish-speaking MDUSD families about distance learning and reopening schools. Among other topics, I'm holding my last SDAC meeting this weekend and plan to brief the new SBM on continuing this body. That's it from me.
All right, thank you very much. Wow, is that an example of, responsibility and quality work? A student board member providing her report from afar. Thank you very much, trustee Ellis, for the model representative that you've provided in this first year of the position. You're gonna have big shoes to fill for the next person, but it's really great. Okay, so next for board reports, trustee Mason.
Okay, been busy. I've listened to 2 different presentations on the funds that are out there in the universe that may get here someday. I went to a DeSaulnier grant writing workshop that they had on federal grants. And it was a nice tie-in because we'd went to the mayor's meeting and that was a really good meeting. And one of the things that kept coming up there was crossing guards. So most of the cities that were interested in crossing guards there are federal dollars through HUD, that's a community development block grant, that if they go and lobby their city, they can put in an application for crossing guards if they want them. And that funding cycle starts in October. So I'm so glad there's so many here to hear that, so they can run out and apply for those monies. I went to the ABAR meeting, the Parent Advisory Committee meeting, attended another meeting, Zoom meeting with Supervisor Burgess about nonprofits and the opportunities there are out there for community-based organizations to partner. Was briefly at the DLAC meeting before I had to run off to a different meeting. The 2 budget meetings, the Friends of the Library, had a meeting with them. They want you to know out there, again, I'm hoping a lot of people from Bay Point are listening. They want everyone to know that Bay Point Library is open. You can go visit. And I went to the College Now graduation, and my favorite time of year, I try to make all the graduations because that is the reason I am here, is for the children. Well, they're not children, for the young people that we serve.
All right, thank you so much, Trustee Mason. Trustee Mayo.
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief on, I went to the budget advisory meeting, even though I'm not one of the speaking board members, I'm always listening into that one. So I appreciate the information that's shared there. I did participate in 2 of the the May revised sessions that probably most of you attended. I did attend the Parent Advisory Committee meeting, the foundation meeting. I've done a lot of PTA training workshops this last week or so. And last night's College Now graduation was very special, and I'll let Ms. McFerrin talk about it. And I want to compliment both you and Dr. Clark for your warm presentations to our students last night at College Now. And I watched 30 minutes of the Foothill Distinguished School Recognition Program, but then we went into closed session. So we didn't actually get to see the award part of it, but perhaps it'll be posted online and we can check it out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Mayo. Trustee Nzeri.
I too will be brief and just take my time this evening for anyone who's listening or watching or recording to honor our students who are promoting and who are graduating. So that's basically everyone, because everyone will move somewhere. So I want to honor the students who struggled like never before and maybe got low grades or got fussed out a lot by their parents or teachers or struggled emotionally more than others. And I want to honor the students that were fine, were able to handle their studies without struggle, roll with the punches, maybe even excelled. I wanted to honor the students who were a little bit of both. It was like, meh, might have struggled with this or that and did great with this or that. But I just want to say that every child and every student in our district deserves to be celebrated because you've made it. My hope for our continuing students is that you're able to return to school next year with pride in the progress you made the last 14 months, ready to pick up where you left off, with pride and satisfaction that you did what you did, and wherever you are in your learning journey, you are ready to keep on keeping on. Mostly, I hope you get to spend this summer just being a kid. To our graduates, just like for the class of 2020, this wasn't the year you imagined, but it's the one you got. And no matter what, you did that. You're about to go out into the world all grown and figure out who you are as an adult. You'll go out having experienced what I hope is the hardest part of your life, which will allow you to take on life's future challenges like a boss. When I was a kid, a running joke from grandparents was, they would say something like, I used to have to walk to school uphill both ways to show how hard they had it. Well, you'll tell your kids about that pandemic of 2019, 2020, or I don't even know what years it is, 2021, 2020, and maybe even to 2022. And you'll say, I spent over a year in a pandemic, and then you can come up with whatever hyperbole will finish the rest of their story to illustrate how hard it was for you and compared to how easy it is for the children in your life. I wish you all much success, courage, and bravery to make our world a better place, to push the older adults around you to not accept the status quo and to experience some form of joy daily.
Thank you so much for that poetry. I love it. All right, Trustee McFerrin.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Over the last couple of weeks, I attended 2 ABAR meetings. The first was a subcommittee meeting. This is a smaller group that's been working to develop goals and to make recommendations about the structure of the committee. I was only able to attend the last part of the meeting last week as it was held at the same time as another meeting that I attend. But these meetings never seem to end early. There's a lot to talk about. So I was really glad to catch part of it. My main takeaway this time is that our need for is that we have this great need for an active ABAR committee that identifies and takes action on racism and bias in our schools. This is something of paramount importance. And so I encourage anyone who's interested to join the ABAR committee. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if you'd like more information on our upcoming meetings. On May 14th, I attended a May budget revision webinar by CSBA. I'm sure we're going to hear more about it soon. We talked a lot about that tonight, about kind of a lot of one-time funding coming in tied to certain programs. The May budget revision was also the main topic of discussion at the Budget Advisory Committee last Wednesday. And due to some unfortunate timing, Dr. Gonzalez was scheduled to attend a webinar about this the very next day. The group had a lot of questions and is very interested in hearing from Dr. Gonzalez next time we meet. I want to thank Trustee Alas for hosting the Q&A session on Zoom for students who are interested in applying for the student board member position. I'm already heartbroken when I think about her moving on, but I really want to thank her for setting the bar so high for having a student board member. And she is literally always going to be number one, no matter what. So I'm just very grateful for her. And then last night, I was honored to attend and address some of our 2021 graduates at the College Now celebration at DVC. I want to thank the College Now administration and staff, as well as our partners at DVC, for putting on an event that was well organized, student focused, and beautifully arranged. It was wonderful to be able to see the students sitting with their families. You know, even with so many faces covered, you could just feel kind of the love and the appreciation in the space. And so I look forward to attending as many more of our graduation ceremonies as I can.
All right, thank you so much, Trustee McFerrin. All right, so let's see. I attended the CCC SBA meeting, which is the Contra Costa County School Boards Association, and congratulations, Trustee Mayo, on being elected to VP of Communications. And I was also reelected president, so we'll be working together on that. Looking forward to it, and it's always great to be able to connect with school board members from all across the county. Vice President Mason and I attended a meeting with Dr. Clark and the mayors from all of the various cities in the big cities in our district, as well as the city managers. And it was a really great opportunity to connect with them in person for the first time. And many of them had met Dr. Clark for the first time in person at this meeting. And we talked about really opening communications between our cities and school districts even more than we have. They had a lot of interest in vaccines and how to help spread the word about that, safe routes to schools, crossing guards and bike lanes, even their plans for expanding broadband throughout the city and how that could connect in with our school districts and help provide that as well. And then I even just saw that the city of Concord is broadcasting the YV High graduation on their channel on the internet. So I'm assuming they must be doing that for all of the Concord schools. So that was kind of neat. I hadn't seen that before. So anyway, looking forward to continuing to build those relationships. Also, I think as all of us have been very focused on our fiscal health and the BAC meeting, the workshop on the May revise, it being interviewed and speaking with FCMAT. So really appreciate just everyone's extra time both on this board as well as staff and Dr. Clark. We've really been going above and beyond to make sure that our fiscal health is in order. And that takes a lot more time than an average, board meeting, board year. So just much appreciation to all of you. And then last week, I also had the pleasure of visiting Horizons and Prospect High to be able to congratulate Teacher of the Year, Libby McDonough. And Principal Brennan showed me around and explained the nuances between all the various alternative education offerings that we have. And it was just great to be able to discuss with her and see it all in one place, how the different opportunities come together. So I kind of drafted up what I learned about in my blog to remind myself and the community about, we have so many flexible, personalized learning options in our district for people to be able to take advantage of. And so really appreciative of that, and hope that people begin to learn more about those. And very excited about all the vaccines that are out there at all of our schools, and especially, I don't know if you all saw, there's free ice cream now on Saturday at the YV High vaccine. So everyone 12 and older, you don't even have to be a Mount Diablo student or family. Share it out with your friends. I'm sure it's going to be probably at every Saturday going forward at the various schools. So wishing you all much health and good wishes going forward. Can't wait to go to all of the graduations that are still to come, and to congratulate all of our graduates and all of our students for having continued, survived through this year, and thrived through this year, and will go forward into the world, I think, as you said, Trustee Nzewi, with this as being hopefully the biggest challenge of their lives, but that whatever happens, that they'll be ready for so many challenges to come. So, all right, with that, thank you all. We have future agenda items, item 21.1, any future agenda items? I think we already have a lot on our plate with the LCAP and the budget that's coming up. Yeah, look for that at our next board meeting. The hearings for the LCAP and the budget, and then the final votes at the last meeting in June. All right, so with that, we are adjourning our meeting at 9:05 p.m. Thank you.